Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order and do the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that Dysart et al. Is located in the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nation, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Boswell, and Georgina Island First Nations. These ancestral homelands are more than a place where the Anishinaabe hunted, fished, gathered, and grew their food long before the settlers' arrival. Indigenous people cared for these lands and waters and have welcomed us as their guests. We pay them respect by ensuring we continue to recognize their ongoing connection to the area and by supporting the health and integrity of the lands and community for generations to come. Okay, can we have adopt the agenda?
Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Dysart et al. Held on March 28th be approved as presented.
Mover and seconder, Walt and Nancy. All in favor? Carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Being none, adoption of the minutes.
Be it resolved that Council approves the March 14th, 2023 regular council meeting minutes as circulated.
Okay, a mover and seconder. Barry and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Okay, do you have anything to report from the county, Walt? No, I'm the same. We just did follow it up on committee of the whole, which is just to repeat kind of performance. So, okay, so we're going into a public meeting.
I have a resolution. Be it resolved that council hereby adjourns the regular meeting of council at 9 o'clock to proceed into a public meeting to consider zoning bylaw amendment application D14 ZB 2022-007 Lands of Warren.
Okay, so
Mover and seconder.
yeah, I need a mover and seconder, Walt and Barry, all in favor? Okay, and I don't think Pat's joining us. So. So we need Jeff here? Or Chris? Jeff, we're doing the Warren file.
Correct. Thank you and good morning, everybody. Chris Orson, our manager of planning, is going to take this file.
Okay,
Thank you,
Chris.
everyone. Good morning, everyone, council and Mayor Ferry. This is for the application D14 ZB 2022-007 Lands of Warren, as noted. The proposed application is a result of a condition of a concurrent severance application. The condition is to rezone the property to the satisfaction of the municipality. Therefore, the applicant would like to rezone their property from waterfront residential type 4L to waterfront residential type 6L zone and waterfront residential 6L with exception zone and environmental protection as noted on the schedule, zoning schedule. This is in order to permit the minimum water setback of 6.1 meters for an accessory structure shed on the retained lot, to permit an accessory structure prior to the main use established on the retained lot, recognize the minimum lot frontage of the retained lot, recognize the use and setbacks of the severed lot, and implement the environmental protection zone on the subject property as shown on Schedule A, which was attached with the report. The applicant notes that there is an existing accessory structure located on the subject property, which is known as the retained lot. Has been in the current location since 1950. A painting by Ethel Curry was provided by the applicant to try to verify the structure date. However, the painting at the time of writing of this report, staff did not have a dated photo. Further, there is no record of the building permit or assessment records indicating the structure existed in this location since July 11th, 1977. It also appears, in addition, was added to the original structure, as shown on the attached photo with the report. Therefore, the structure is not considered to have legal non-compliant status. The existing dwelling located on the severed lot was first assessed in 1954. Subject to the purchase of the Shore Road allowance, the dwelling's location is recognized pursuant to section 3.2.7 of the official plan. Staff recommend a resolution that the applicant submit an application to the municipality to purchase the Shore Road allowance to legalize the location of the existing dwelling. Circulation was provided to all neighboring property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. To date, no comments have been received. And I believe Pat is not in attendance today, unfortunately. She couldn't connect, so I'll just read a little blurb that she had wanted to say to council. So this is from the owner, Pat Warren. She states that my father built the shed or the shack around 1952 while working as a physician in Haliburton. Ethel Curry painted it in 1957, which shows that it predates the Planning Act. She sent photos of the front and back of with Ethel's signature and date to Mr. Ferry. So I believe you might have seen that, Mr. Ferry.
Yes, I have.
And the shack has not caused any environmental issues, as is mostly used for storage for our beach activities. I personally support the environment, and the retained beach lot is where we want to build well past the 30 meters. So staff have provided recommendation. The recommendation was that the bylaw be deferred and that staff be directed to remove the provision from the bylaw that would reduce the minimum water setback for an accessory structure and permit an accessory structure prior to a main building or use being established on the retained lot, and that staff be directed to return to the April 25th meeting, 2023 council meeting with the amended bylaw, and that the applicant be directed to apply to the municipality to purchase the Shore Road allowance adjacent to the subject property. And that's all that stuff for the overview of the application, if there's any questions.
No, I can vouch that that's been there. Ethel Curry Gallery has a picture that she painted in 1957, and it clearly says the date is 1957. So, I mean, it's a beautiful lot, sand beach, and I guess you're all too young to remember Dr. Warren, but he was here in the 60s. And then he actually, it's kind of a personal thing, but when I started at General Motors, he was the doctor that did the physio on me, because he'd left here and gone there. So anyway, I personally can vouch that there's nothing wrong with this, and we should bring it back in April. It's 60 some years old and doesn't have any environmental issues. So any just concern with that? Okay, so I guess Chris, bring that back. Like you suggested.
Sorry, I think
Are we
Jeff
good?
has a question, sorry.
Yep.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you. And just for clarification purposes, Chris, maybe you can comment on this, but I think the only reason for staff's recommendation to defer this application was because of the questions surrounding the date of that accessory building. If council's satisfied that that building has legal non-complying status, I don't think there's anything preventing this bylaw from going forward today. So I just wanted to bring that up. There's no need to defer it if you're satisfied with that building.
No, I'd like to get it done today. She's been dragging on this because she couldn't ever find the pictures from the 1950s. So if we can move forward with it, that's great.
Yeah, I don't have any concerns that if council is satisfied with that, then the bylaw could be passed today. That's correct.
Okay, and I think it's on the agenda here, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. So we're gonna. Are you guys staying on now, or we're just okay? We're going to come out of the public meeting
There's a resolution.
and a resolution to come out of public.
I have a resolution for this file, Jeff.
Well, I was just going to suggest, because of the change in direction from staff's recommendation, there's a change in the resolution.
Yep.
I can read the resolution. I think I could probably wordsmith it as I go, and
Sure, and I'll edit as I go on the paper.
sure,
Go
sounds
for it.
good. So the first two aren't going to change. Be it resolved that file number D14ZB 2022-007 for the lands of Warren, which consists of part lot 8, concession 7 in the geographic township of Dudley, municipality of Dysart et al. Be received for information, and that council directs a bylaw be brought forward for consideration during its March 28th, 2023 regular meeting, and that council recommends approval of the bylaw. And lastly, and that the applicant be directed to apply to the municipality to purchase the shore road allowance adjacent to the subject property.
Okay,
Okay.
for the movers, you've heard that? Walt, mover, Walt, Carm, all in favor? Carry. Okay, so now we have a resolution to come out.
Be it resolved that council hereby adjourns the public meeting at 9:11 a.m. and reconvenes the regular meeting of council.
Mover and seconder. Okay, Pat and Tammy, all in favor? Carry. Okay, now we have Kevin Anane, who's the manager of the Scouts Canada.
Your worship, members of council, municipal staff, good morning. I am Kevin Anion, National Property Operations Manager for Scout Canada. Today, I'd like to tell you a bit about Scouts Canada and then discuss our plans for Haliburton Scout Reserve. Scouts Canada mission is to help develop well-rounded youth better prepared for success in the world. Youth leadership, community engagement, and environmental stewardship have long been the heart of Scouts Canada's values and cultures for more than 100 years. We are Canada's largest co-ed youth organization with a national program that provides outdoor education and non-formal life skills to Canadian youth. Scouts Canada is an extensive and established network of more than 19,000 adult volunteers and staff who annually dedicate nearly 3 million hours of community service. The youth membership currently encompasses 40,000 youth members. That was 56,000 before the pandemic, but our numbers are coming back quickly in 2,000 communities across the country. Just a couple of interesting facts. Scouts has been fully co-ed since 1998. That's 25 years. And we have programming for youth from 5 years old to 26 years old. Scouts Canada owns or leases 543 properties across Canada. Moreover, we have thousands of scouts and scouters with marvelous memories of the Haliburton Scout Reserve, Canada's largest scouting property. With the rebound that our membership numbers are now experiencing, it is now time to reopen our camp and expand the seasonal experience to include shoulder seasons and eventually the winter season. We are expanding our property usage to Girl Guides and like-minded third-party organizations. Outward Bound wants to use our camp, and we want to share it with them. With over 5,000 acres and 11 lakes, we have lots of space. We have always experienced worldwide interest, but now with our new CEO, Liam Burns from the UK, we're expecting international visits to HSR to rise, and we're already hearing of troops wanting to experience Haliburton. Fiscally, we are blessed with a strong portfolio that is backed by countless eager alumni ready to help and see HSR regain its place as the crown jewel in Scouts Canada's camp portfolio. We have hired locally for the ranger position, and I am sure you've seen signs around town that we want to hire other staff positions from the community. We're in the process of renewing accounts at local businesses because we want to shop local. We have recently introduced ourselves to the HCDC because partnerships and being wise in the use of our resources is the backbone of our success. We realize that rural communities thrive when small businesses do. As you can see, we're on a roll. However, we have literally hit a roadblock. Kenaway Road is currently plowed up to Susie Lane on both sides of the road. Past Susie Lane, the right side of the road is plowed, and the north side or left side is a groomed snowmobile trail. Kenaway's single lane plowing continues west to Inkanen Trail, where the practice of plowing both sides of Inkanen Trail is resumed. The 4 kilometers of total unplowed road from Inkanen Trail, where you may have seen the streetcar on the side of the road, to the west entrance of our camp is now showing remnants of a groomed skidoo trail that is wide as the road allowance. Currently, we have down power wires that need to be repaired and then rehung by Hydro One. And access down Kenaway is needed. Plus, without access to our property, we can't get our staff in to revitalize the property and get ready for the camping season. What I'm asking for today, now that the snowmobile or skidoo season is over and the trail has somewhat melted, to have the road plowed to where the power lines are down, which is approximately 750 meters past the west entrance, so that power can be restored. Secondly, I'm asking that during the summer, that the Dysart Council will help develop a plan to have Kenaway Road plowed the extra 4 kilometers to our west entrance. We realize that snowmobiling is a great sport and part of the community and is important to the local economy. The discussion to plow Kenaway in our eyes is not a binary decision. We feel that Scouts have over 5,000 acres of property and a groomed snowmobile trail to modify the current road to allow for the plowed road is an obtainable solution. Thank you for affording me the time this morning. I'll happily answer any questions.
So Kevin, you're tax exempt, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
And you've logged that for a lot of years.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't been logged for, well over 30 years, I believe.
Oh, I
from my
think less
record.
than that. The Collins
Oh.
were logging in there since that. So anyway, we'll talk to our staff about this, but our resources are pretty well tapped. And so are you going to use this road year round?
Yes, we are.
So are
We
you,
plan to.
what are you projecting for winter use?
Not a lot. It would be probably 2 or 3 weekends a month. But we do have staff that will need to get in 2 or 3 days a week.
Okay, and are you proposing a maple syrup operation in there?
Not at this point, no.
Okay. Well, we'll talk to staff about it. I think we're pretty well taxed. I think you can probably generate enough revenue off that property to look after the road yourselves. And I'm not being harsh about this. We all know the great job that the Boy Scouts do, and we're pleased to have you back in the community after COVID, I guess is the reason you were shut down.
Correct.
But, we'll discuss this a little later if you don't mind, and get back to you with a firm answer.
We need a solution going forward. That's not necessarily a Dysart solution, but we do need to come up with a solution.
Okay, well, there's lots of solutions. It's just a matter of who pays the bills.
I understand what you're saying.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And we'll be back to you. Okay,
Thanks very much.
thank you. Okay. So we need a resolution there.
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the delegation from Kevin Anion, Manager of Property Operations for Scouts Canada, requesting that municipality plow to the Halliburton Scout Reserve property located at 3161 Kenaway Road.
A mover and seconder, Barry and Tammy. All in favor? Carried. Okay, what do we got next here? Jason Eorn, CAO. Eastern Ontario Regional Network. This will excite you, Tammy. Jeff coming back on? Okay. Mr. St. Pierre, are you ready?
I think he's still trying to join. I'm also with Eorn.
Okay,
So I'll send him a quick text just in case. But
can you hear us, Jeff? Okay.
I think Jason was thinking it was exactly at 9:30. So I did send him a text, and as well as Jim Pine, who's in the room with him. I know they're wrapping up another meeting, so perhaps it takes them a couple of minutes.
You realize our time is valuable. Just kidding.
I don't know, but with Zoom sometimes it seems to. I don't know. Sometimes the meetings are so back to back to back that it does seem like time is valuable in that sense.
You see 1020 there. You got the elevation there. Okay, Jason's there.
My apologies.
Accepted.
Lost track of time there. I was saying earlier, I find with Zoom,
Fine, no doubt.
I am with Jim Pine, so I guess that's my get out of jail free card, I guess. So
Okay. Okay, who wants to lead here?
I think Marco's going to drive the presentation for us, and Jim and I will be the color analysts here through this thing. So.
Oh, good.
All right. Well, we'd like to thank you for inviting us up to talk about the Eastern Ontario Regional Network Cell Gap project. It's probably long overdue for another visit back up into Dysart to give you an update where we're at and what's happening with our project. So, perhaps some have seen this slide in the past that may be new to others, but just as a recap. Oh, sorry, Marco. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Just as a recap where we are. So the CellGap project overview for this program, we are looking through our project to upgrade approximately 312 sites. Will be upgraded from this current LTE voice capability to 5G. Currently, we have about 297 of those sites done. So we have a slide later that'll give you more of a breakdown into the Halliburton and Dysart area. But we are making very good progress in our upgrades. So typically, these would be existing sites that they're changing. In this case, Rogers would be changing out the radios and the transmitting equipment on the towers to be able to upgrade it from the LTE to the 5G. We have 260 sites that will be new builds across Eastern Ontario. Currently, we have 13 of those sites in service. We have met our plan of intent for this year, so some really good progress in that space. But we are, it's taken us a little bit longer to get to this point than we'd initially anticipated when we developed the project. So, and we'll get to some of those issues we've had, not really issues, I guess more process learnings that we've had through the project. So, and we have approximately, it won't be approximately, 74 sites will be co-locating on existing towers. So this may be a Bell or a municipal tower, CBC, et cetera, where Rogers is able to come up with an agreement to be able to put their equipment on an existing tower throughout Eastern Ontario. Our schedule and our funding goes until 2025. So we are about 2 years into this project, I guess, a couple more years to go. And we are looking to meet or exceed our project goals. As I said, for our 22-23 targets, we did meet our plan of intent with our number of upgrades, our co-locations, as well as our new builds. So we are making good progress, and we are really ramping up our construction programs for the next 2 years, where we have a very intense schedule to be able to meet our targets. We also, through our contracts, have negotiated service level agreements for the next 5 years to ensure that we have the capacity to meet any of the growth in our rural markets, and to ensure that we are able to provide service to all of the residents within, or to those within our coverage area. The next slide. All right. So for the project, the benefits for Eastern Ontario, the biggest one, closing the coverage gaps within Eastern Ontario to help our residents and our people traveling through our territories, tourists, cottagers, et cetera, stay connected. We're looking to increase the capacity that's in the network so we can expand service offerings, speed, better, fewer drop calls, et cetera. We're looking to improve the public safety, the 911 calls, with the advancement of some of the 5G technologies with the high definition, looking to work with some of the paramedicine services to be able to provide video calls while they're on routes, to be able to improve the communications with the hospital so they know what they're getting into when an ambulance is en route, for police services to be able to help support them with better connectivity and more throughput, broadband services to be able to do some of those high definition type of applications. We are looking to improve municipal services through this. And again, paramedicine's in there, public works. It opens the doors to opportunities with the Internet of Things, IoT type applications that will be coming down in the near future. We are seeing some of that in some of the larger urban areas today, where there are efficiencies being learned through whether it's snow plows where they are, garbage pickups, et cetera. So through smart cities and the Internet of Things. So by having the infrastructure in place will allow us to start looking at some of those types of opportunities in our rural markets, and looking to see where we can grow this and start applying applications over top of these networks that we've been building. We're looking to improve economic opportunities in the tourism experience. A lot of our rural areas, a lot of our cottage country, we have people who live in the urban areas, whether it be in Toronto or Ottawa. They're coming out. When I first started working with ERN a number of years ago from my previous position, we would have hoped that by having internet connectivity, we would see people be able to take the Friday, work from the cottage, and still be able to have that work-life balance. What we're seeing now since the pandemic is that people are looking to spend not just the Friday, but the Monday at the cottage as well, spend some well-deserved time in the rural areas, spending time with family. And by having better connectivity, whether it's through cellular or broadband, will help give those opportunity for those people from the urban areas where they have cottages, or for those people who may be renting cottages or spending time in our rural areas. So looking for the economic benefit and the opportunity for those people to spend more time in our communities. And the new towers will allow for future deployment of the fixed wireless and new technology rollouts. For some of you, we started with the LTE space, which was just voice, and then it went to 3G, which was some data. Now we're into 5G. The technology continues to evolve, but the infrastructure, once it's in place, will be able to be used for multiple new technologies or expanded technologies as those opportunities come out. So what we're building today, we really are looking to future-proof our network, and we're ensuring that by building it today, we're building the right network with the right coverage to be able to service not just today, but also in the future. Okay, Marco, next slide. So the goals of our project. Our goal is to achieve 99% coverage in Eastern Ontario where people live, work, and travel on the major roadways so they can make and receive cell phone calls. We're also looking to ensure that we have the ability for those calls to be seamless and to be handed off between cell towers so that you don't have drop calls as we're traveling across our territories. We're looking to put 95% coverage in Eastern Ontario where people live, work, and travel on major roadways for standard level, for standard definition service levels, which supports your basic applications, your emails, your web browsing, some social media, those types of applications. So not data intense, but some of the communications that we use every day. And we're looking to achieve 85% coverage in Eastern Ontario with high definition service, which can support video conferencing, movie streaming, and other data intense applications. These are the ones where we look at paramedicine and some of the opportunities we're seeing in that space. That's where that high definition really does come into effect there. And that's a large change in the way that networks are being built today. So why adding sites? So Marco, you're gonna drive this one for us so we can get the car to go. We'll see if this works for us. This will be the first time we've presented this slide to a council, so you guys are the first ones to see this one. But so why adding sites was important or required. We drive the area today, and we do see there's a number of towers already in a lot of our areas. But what we're seeing now is as we start to increase the amount of data usage in our rural markets and in our mobile services, we require additional towers to be able to not just create the proper network for seamless handoff in calls, but also for high definition or standard definition usage, that we're ensuring that the network is there to be able to support that as we move through these areas so that it's a clean handoff between these sites, but also from a network perspective that we have enough capacity in that network to support not just today's usage, but also what's going to be there in the future. So it's not just voice for seamless handoff, but we're also preparing this for high definition and standard definition. And one of the things you'll notice on the rings here, the first one, cell level, typically the footprint on a cell level call just for voice is quite a bit larger than it is for high definition. When you start into high definition services, the footprint of coverage is quite a bit tighter to the tower location because of what's required for those transmissions. The technology, the towers, so typically the towers we're building across Eastern Ontario are in the 60 to 90 meter range. They need to be this high in order to be able to optimize, the Canadian Shield and the topography that we love to live and drive through. That's also a challenge, though. So that's partially the height of these. In urban areas, we may be able to find buildings that would be able to support that type of height, but in a lot of our rural markets, unfortunately, we don't have that capability, and therefore those types of towers are required. We have looked and discussed with our partner Rogers on this, the option or the opportunity to try to camouflage these towers to see if we could hide them better. Unfortunately, though, when we looked at that, it does have a negative impact or risk of negative impact for the service capabilities on what we're trying to deliver. We're also very concerned, especially in our lake regions, that with the type of camouflaging that has traditionally been used in the past, it's a plastic almost ribbon that's being used. And over time, with the UV impacts of the sun and other the wind, etc., ice shearing, we do end up with a shedding of the plastic needles, which of course ends up in our lakes, which we don't want either. The third part of that is when you look at camouflaging those towers at 60 or 90 meters, the cost to provide service or to build those towers almost doubles. And it does have, on the actual camouflaging itself does have a lifespan on it that it will not last the life of the tower. From the technology of what we're building today, the radios we're putting on there today will support both the 4G and the 5G technologies that are coming out. So that is for your not just your email and social media, but that 5G will also give us that high definition capability and will allow for the video calls, Zoom calls, etc. So it'll also increase the capacity on the sites, and it really will future-proof our network for today and tomorrow. Once that tower's there, again, as I said earlier, we are able to utilize that not just for this, but also for future upgrades similar to the 312 towers that we are upgrading currently. So we get into Halliburton and Dysart, the builds themselves, and you'll note on here that these numbers are subject to change. So this was pulled data as of the 15th of March, 2023. So a little bit of this is some planning data. A little bit of this is actually what's in flight. There could be some fluctuation either way on these, depending on the ability to find reasonable sites, be able to have the site pass through the LUA process to be accepted. Those types of challenges we have seen. So there could be a bit of a fluctuation on these numbers, but our planned numbers right now for Halliburton County, we've upgraded 19 of 21 towers, so making very good progress there. And in Dysart itself, we have upgraded the 6 of the 6 towers that we had there. So those 6 towers have been completed and are in service now. On the tower builds, Halliburton itself, we're proposing 31 new tower sites for Halliburton. It is one of the most aggressive builds that we have within our Eastern Ontario Regional Network plan with Rogers, with an appreciation that there really has been a dark spot or a hole within the communications networks throughout Eastern Ontario, and Halliburton County has been one of the largest areas. So we do have a large impact there. Dysart directly, we have proposal of 13 new towers to be built there, which is about 42% of the overall build for Halliburton County will be residing in Dysart itself. Co-locations, we have one of the 4 for Halliburton County completed. There are no co-locations required within itself for Dysart. That was all done through the upgrades. And on the land use authority, within Halliburton County, we have 8 of our 31 that have been completed and in place. Within Dysart, we have 5 of those 13. So we are making some very good progress there, and we appreciate all of the support from the municipal teams and the planning who have been supporting this project, asking some really good questions and working through this with both the ERN as well as the Roger team. So we would like to thank you all for your support in this. So we always feel this is an interesting slide just to sort of lay out for, especially for municipal leaders, when you're asked the questions of if the LUA is accepted, why is that tower not up, or why is it taking so long? So this is an interesting slide just to sort of lay out the steps of what's required for Rogers in this case to be able to build a tower within one of our municipalities. So probably the most challenging piece for any organization that builds towers in rural communities to find a property that meets the needs for the network. When Rogers does an overview of what's required, they lay out the topography of Eastern Ontario and figure out what the best locations would be for the towers to be placed in order for the network to be as seamless as possible. They take into account the topography, the distances, they look at considerations, is there power nearby, is it possibly microwaved or fiber into for the transport network? And then they need to find somebody who's willing to put a tower up on their property, which at times can have challenges within itself. And when you find someone who's willing to put a tower up, quite often we will quickly, or Rogers in this case, will quickly try to negotiate an agreement and come to that. So step 2 is to negotiate that lease. So once we find a willing landlord that meets the sort of the area that we're looking at, the criteria as far as height and power, accessibility, etc., a lease would be negotiated. As part of our project, and this is, we were delegated the duty to consult process by the Crown to be able to work with the First Nation communities, and there's 18 of them within Eastern Ontario that we work with. 2 that we actually have agreements with to work very closely with, including Curve Lake and Pikwakagon of the Golden Lake area. But part of our agreement or our process is we conduct an archaeological assessment, a stage 1 and a stage 2, as well as a natural heritage assessment of the proposed sites. This was newly introduced to this project at the start of it and was not anticipated when the thought of building towers first came up. It has had some very interesting progressions through it over the past year or so. I've been here since July, and I think my first 6 or 8 weeks was spent learning about this process and what was required. And it is a very in-depth requirement. So of the 260 sites, we will be doing archaeological assessments and natural heritage assessments and working with our First Nations partners on each of those sites. Once we've accepted that, nothing has been found. We're okay with the First Nation communities are okay with this. We share the results. They sign off on that. We would then go to the municipality and follow the land use authority process within the municipality. So we've already done a good portion of the work in advance, and then we come to the municipality with the LUA process, looking to get sign off for that location. Once we've had that discussion and we get that sign off, we notify the province that the site is ready to proceed, and site preparation, ordering material, delivery of supplies, and construction begins. This process within itself has been taking anywhere between 15 to 18 months to be able to go on a smooth process. So we are working through this, and again, we appreciate the questions and the effort put in by the planning departments as they go through this process with us. Okay. First Nation consultations. I did allude to this or mention this earlier. We are working closely with our Indigenous communities and organizations across the region. There are 18 of them, 6 of those communities directly within the footprint of the territory that we are working in Eastern Ontario. And we're working to understand and respect their views and their inputs in each of our locations. And it is interesting from the perspective that across the vastness of Eastern Ontario, the differences we'll learn about, whether it's a species at risk, a mitigation requirement, a treaty requirement, as we have a couple of different treaties that we work within as far as across Eastern Ontario, as many of you might be aware of. So it's been a real learning process for us as we work with the First Nations community to mitigate any undue harm to the natural landscape and the animals that live within it. So it's been a very educational opportunity for us to work through this, and we've been, Marco and Jim have been key in leading that for us, as well as Lisa Severinson, to ensure that we are documenting this, and we'll have information that we'll be able to share with some of the municipalities if requested on our learnings from this exercise. We, both EORN and the UWC, strongly believe that the benefit of the project must extend to all communities, municipal and Indigenous in Eastern Ontario, and consultation will continue throughout the full course of this project. And we have a call every 2 weeks with Curve Lake as well as with Pikwakagon to touch base and make sure that we are adhering to each other's, or the communication lines of communication are open and we're comfortable in having these discussions. So the municipalities play a key role, and the municipalities are key in this. The project would have been brought forward was an idea through the OWC with the support of the municipalities, but the heavy lifting still comes back to the municipalities when it comes to working with the communities, with the LUA process. So, we're looking at this, the municipalities are responsible for the land use authority, the LUA, for proposed new tower sites. So Rogers, as our partner, who was successful in winning the RFP for us, has completed the LUA process on half of the planned tower sites across Eastern Ontario so far, and will continue to work with the municipalities on obtaining the LUAs for the remaining sites. So we're about 100 and, so Mark, was it 100? Sorry, I wish I should have had the numbers written down, but I left that paper at home. We're just 120 sites, I believe we're,
LUAs?
yes.
Yeah, roughly, that's how many LUAs we've completed.
Yeah, about
We're
120.
roughly halfway.
Yeah, so we're making really good progress there, and we've had some very interesting conversations in some of the municipalities, and appreciate again some of the feedback and conversations that the local elected officials and staff have been having with residents as well in some of our rural municipalities. So we post the LUA approval. So the municipalities are key to moving the project forward by working with Rogers on the process and the building application, et cetera. And really this is time sensitive. We have been looking at some data recently where the LUA process typically within the municipalities is taking between 60 to 70 days. Which again, to go through that process, that's the time it takes. We do have some other vendors who are working in that space. Is taking quite a bit longer. So again, we appreciate the focus and working with the local municipalities on trying to get these through. EORN has created resource documents for use by the municipalities, and we're always available to assist. So if there's concerns or issues, we're happy to attend, whether it's a consultation meeting, meetings like this, if there's questions or inquiries, we are here to help support you in any way that we can. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we will do our best to try to either answer your question or find a way to try to support you through that. We also have the tower siting resource guide and a 5G resource guide available on our website at the eorn.ca site. So it's just some information on there as you're receiving questions or concerns, just to help try to support you in some of the positions that have been put forward by ISED on the tower siting policies. So ISED, who is the Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada Group, does have a position or a role in the tower site of approvals. So ultimately, ISED has the authority under the Radio Communication Act to approve each site on which radio apparatus, including towers, may be located, and to approve the erection of all masts, towers, and other antenna supporting structures. ISED generally favors having the telecom service providers, the TSPs, the local public, and the land use authority, the LUA, work together towards a solution, which takes each other's interests into consideration. And this is a position that EORN has been very supportive, as has Rogers, in trying to ensure that that step is taken where public consultation is taking place and feedback is being received. Unfortunately, there are times where that information may not be what some would like to hear, both ways, but it is ongoing. And again, EORN is here to help support if requested or required by the municipality or by anybody else who is involved in this process. Under ISED procedures, if either the LUA or TSP believes discussions have reached an impasse, either can formally request departmental intervention concerning a reasonable and relevant concern. So there is a process in place where the TSP or the municipality can go to ISED. Our preference, as much as possible, we would prefer to try to work this out at the local levels between Rogers in this case and the municipalities, and to try not to involve ISED where possible. Some of the reason around that is the timelines to do this. We do have a tight time schedule, as you saw earlier. We are looking to be finished by 2025, and the process to go through the ISED can take a fair amount of time, depending on how busy they are and the number of concerns they may be working with. So our goals here at EORN is to try to help facilitate and mitigate as many of these concerns as possible. Through education and advocacy, we will work with the municipalities and Rogers to try to our best to ensure that everybody is aware of our project and what the benefits of this are. And we appreciate that there are some challenges. ISED's tower guideline related to public service, and there's a word in here that that I'm not a huge fan of, but this is actually right from the guideline policy. So concerns considered relevant includes, and it's the word relevant that I personally struggle a little bit with, but that is actually in here. it's, from my perspective, sometimes it gets turned around as, well, that's irrelevant. That's not what's meant to be used for this, but from a relevancy perspective, from a policy for ISED as far as tower guidelines, the considerations that are taken into consideration is, why is the use of the tower of an existing tower not possible? In this case, in Dysart, as an example, we have explored that, upgraded the towers, the 6 towers that we are aware of, and there are no other towers that meet the guidelines or requirements for what we would like to be able to do. Why is an alternate site not possible? We do take those into consideration. What is the TSP doing to ensure the tower is inaccessible to the general public? In these cases, Rogers would be accountable for that. And with many, many years of building towers and public safety, they are well aware of what would be required to ensure that those towers are built safely for now and for the future. How is the TSP trying to integrate the tower into the local surroundings? What options are available to satisfy aeronomical obstructions, marking requirements at this site? And what are the steps the TSP took to ensure compliance with the general requirements of the documents, including the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act, Safety Code number 6, etc. Concerns that are not relevant, and this is where we often hear irrelevant, which of course, as a member of the public, is the last thing you want to be told, that your concerns are irrelevant. But as ISED positions this, concerns that are not relevant include disputes with members of the public relating to the TSP service, but unrelated to the tower installation, potential effects that a proposed tower system will have on property values or municipal taxes, and questions whether the Radio Communication Act, Radio Communication and Broadcasting Antennas, Safety Code 6, locally established bylaws, other legislation, procedures, or processes are valid or should be reformed in some manner. So we will often hear discussion around some of these concerns. We will take them into consideration, but under the ISED guidelines, they would not be considered relevant as part of a reason not to accept a tower location. The financial breakdown, this is always the fun part. So our project, we are looking to invest over $300 million in Eastern Ontario before in-kind contributions or the community benefits included. So this is purely financial investments made by the Ontario government at $71 million, the government of Canada at $71 million, a little bit less there, but we'll give them a little bit more there. So $71 million. $10 million from the EOWC and the EOMC, so the Eastern Ontario Mayor's Caucus, have input $10 million. And Rogers is making a minimum investment of $150 million in Eastern Ontario through this project. If we look specifically at Haliburton County, and we don't have it down to the municipal level of Dysart, but at the county level of Haliburton, there's a contribution made of $442,000 towards this project. So from the number of towers that are being built, the service impacts, the benefits, we feel the return on investment of Haliburton County will be very, very successful. The timelines, so we are looking to have the towers upgraded by the end of this year, and based on the discussions that have been going on with Rogers, so we feel that we have a very, very good opportunity to have those completed. The land use process, we started in 2021. We're looking to finish in 2024 to be able to have those towers built by the end of 2025. The Indigenous consultation process will continue through the life of our project, so till 2025. New tower construction will be the same. And announcements, we are starting to slowly, we've had one announcement, public announcement so far over in the eastern part of Eastern Ontario. We are looking to have another announcement here shortly, probably in the May timeframe down in the Prince Edward County areas where we're looking. So we are slowly rolling out our announcements, and we will be involving the local counties and municipalities when we are making those announcements. And that's it for us. That's any questions?
I just have a quick one on the last slide. I guess it's third from the last, where it says concerns that aren't relevant include, and your last one is questions on whether the Radio Communications Act it's a little bit confusing because it's under concerns that aren't relevant, which is safety code 6 and locally established bylaws. But then after that, it says that they are valid. So are they valid or are they concerns that are not relevant?
Oh, sorry, can you go back to that slide, Marco, if you don't mind, please?
Yep.
Yeah,
Give me one
because
second.
so I said would not consider safety code 6 or any challenge of the Radio Communication Act as a relevant reason not to cite a tower.
Yeah,
So they've done their studies to the best of their ability. So the safety code 6 would be considered not relevant as a reason for a tower not to be built. Same with challenges to the Radio Communication Act, the broadcast antenna systems, or locally, the ISED's not involved in that piece. So they would suggest that those things have been covered off, and that's not a reason for a tower not to be built.
Okay, so then you mean, it shouldn't say then that the procedures or processes are valid. Because
says
you're
that,
saying that they're not valid because they're not relevant under that heading.
the questions
All
about
right.
those acts are not valid.
Yeah, it's just the questions on those acts.
Right, okay, all right, I understand. So you
And-
do
and-
not,
sorry.
so what's not relevant is that there's any questions about safety code 6 or locally established bylaws. Those are not relevant, those questions to those items.
For ISED to rule on, yes. And this is
Right,
not our, sorry, and I should have preferenced this, I guess. This is not from URN or from Rogers. This is actually right from the tower siting guidelines from ISED's guideline documents.
Right, no, but I understand it as that they're not relevant because they've already been validated, safety code 6 and the locally established bylaws, correct?
Correct, yes.
Right, okay.
Any other questions? So Tammy, what you're saying is there's not a whole lot to movement here.
Well, it's not relevant to question our local bylaw of policy 38.
Okay, I guess there's no further questions then. We'll move to
Yeah, just going back to the presentation there, you're saying all the other towers that are existing are going to the 5G, is that correct?
Yeah, so
Electricity?
so in Dysart, there were 6 towers that have been upgraded to 5G, yes.
Okay, thanks.
I have another. Yeah, you said that on your technology slide that it supports 4G and 5G. So I'm questioning if it supports 4G and 5G, why does a 5G tower only reach 800 meters when a 4G tower can reach 12 kilometers?
It depends on the type of spectrum. It's the spectrum that's being utilized on those towers as far as how far, because of the data intensity required. So 5G is more data intensive, so the footprint is shorter, and the spectrum, it's a different spectrum than 4G.
So
So
do
both-
all the towers have 4G and 5G on them? Is that what it's saying?
The technology will support 4 and 5G, yes, as well as LTE for voice.
But that the towers going up do not have 4G on them, the new ones?
The new ones will have 4 and 5G as well, yes. The radios support both for all those frequencies.
Okay, so does that mean that the towers going up will have more than an 800 meter radius? Because it
For
supports
L-
4G.
For LTE, yes. For 4G, yes. For 5G, it'll fall within that shorter radius.
Okay, so.
So
what you're
sorry,
saying-
Marco, can you just go back to that slide with the little car that we had driving through there?
You can jump in and add to it.
Just so I can get into my head here, so like, the issue around here is the location of the towers. So basically, I think what you're saying is if they don't have them where you guys have laid them out, or where Rogers has laid them out, the 5G is allowing for high definition. And if you don't put them where you guys are talking about, then you're not going to get that ability for high definition. Is that kind of?
That's correct. Yeah, so when Rogers would have looked at the area, they would have looked at the best places to, so this map here for the best coverage. So they would look at the LTE service, which is your cell level voice coverage, which is our 99% target. They would have looked at the 95% standard definition level, which would be the second one, and then the high definition. And they would have placed that so that those towers are able to communicate to each other the best possible way for the most seamless handoffs across the network. And that's really when they're building this, they're building a network, not just a single tower site, and which is part of the scope of our program has been to build a network, not a cell tower. So when they've looked at it based on topography and distances and locations, they've been selecting the places to the best of their abilities that will give them that seamless network coverage throughout Eastern Ontario. So you're correct. Yes, those towers are there. And by not, so let's say if we took out the one in yellow, in this case, here's an example, we would end up with a hole in our network where we would not have coverage. And that is always a concern or a risk when we're looking at a tower not being approved. Rogers, when they do this in the field, has spent quite a bit of time doing the analysis for the best locations, and then they try to find a willing partner who would allow them to place a tower on their site that would be able to meet this coverage model that we have.
I have, what is the life of the tower? Because you said that the camouflage towers don't last the life of the tower. What is the life of a tower?
I can get that information for you. I mean, it'll depend on, they're changing the technology all the time in the build, but I can get an actual life of a tower. I think of some that are 25, 30 years old. I think of some of the radio towers, depending on the equipment that's on them, that are even older. So I think there's a CJOH one in Vanacker. I'm not sure how old that one is, but it's quite old. The challenge you get with the camouflage, though, is that with the UV and the sun and the wind and the ice and all that, they do shed quickly. So within a few years, you'll lose most of the camouflaging off of those sites, and they'll end up in your waterways or your land use, etc. So
Yeah, I understand that.
but I can come back with a timeline or approximately on life of a tower.
No, that's fine. I think that if you said 25 to 30 years, that's okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the presentation from representatives of the Eastern Ontario Regional Network regarding the EORN Cell Gap Project.
Okay, now. Proposed telecommunication tower at Elephant Lake Road. Who's gonna address that? Jeff?
Yes, I can start with that. Thank you. So Rogers Communications is proposing to construct a 75-meter guide tower on Elephant Lake Road, which is just northwest of Benore Lake. The proposed tower is to improve service in the area as part of this Eastern Ontario Regional Network Cell Gap project that Jason just spoke of. Rogers has provided a site selection and justification report, which outlines the site selection process. It notes that the proposed site will provide much relied upon communication services in the area for things such as EMS response, police and fire, as well as economic development. The proposal was reviewed pursuant to the municipality's policy 38, specifically the site selection and design criteria outlined in that policy. As per the report, the tower is located approximately 264 meters from the nearest residence, whereas the policy encourages a 1 kilometer setback. In addition, the proposed tower is a guide style tower, whereas the policy notes that monopine style towers are preferred. The applicant notes that the setback distance of 264 meters from a residence is consistent with other towers in Dysart and elsewhere. They further state that locating the tower 1,000 meters from a residence means that the tower would fail to cover the subscribers in the area and thus would not be able to achieve the EORN's 99% connectivity for voice calling services. The applicant further notes that monopine towers can be constructed to a maximum height of 40 meters and therefore are not sufficient to meet the technical requirements for the cell gap project in this area. As required by federal regulations and policy 38, Rogers has undertaken the public consultation process. Notice was mailed to nearby residences and lake associations. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper and public open house was held on March 14th. About 16 people from the public attended that open house. Several comments were received during that public process. Comments included support for the tower, such as the need for service and that it's needed for safety reasons. There was concerns over tower siting, type and tower height, concerns regarding health and Health Canada Safety Code 6. There was concerns pertaining to visual mitigation, lighting and dark skies, noise concerns, environmental concerns, and lastly, the public thought that there might be options for alternative tower locations. Rogers feels that the proposed site is well suited to provide and improve the services in the targeted area. They note that the proposed site has been situated to have minimal impact on surrounding land uses and request that the municipality provide concurrence on the project. If council chooses to provide concurrence today, a resolution is provided. Staff have recommended conditions that the applicants provide a vegetation buffer around the tower and access road. The applicants, Jeff and Victoria McKay, are in attendance today. So they may wish to comment on my report or answer any questions council may have. But ultimately, staff are seeking direction from council related to the public comments and the applicant's request for concurrence.
Okay. Any questions? This is a site where there was all the controversy about, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Go
Are you
ahead.
going for comments? Okay. I was on that meeting and I only remember one comment on support of the tower out of the 20 some people that were there. There was also people that were scheduled to go on that meeting that were late but did not get added to that Zoom call. Out of all the possible sites, which are over 10 in that map that Jeff McKay provided, Jeff McKay only picks the only site that has residents on it. And there are other sites that have exactly all the possibilities that site has, but would be better suited for the population that's there, which he did not want to move at all on. The bell towers around the county do not seem to be as intrusive as the Roger towers are. Why is this? We don't seem to have anybody, I think since 2018, complain about a bell tower, but these Roger towers are coming in and sitting on top of the population. It would be nice to know why a bell tower is finding much better locations than a Rogers tower when all of them have 5G on them. And does this mean that the Rogers towers, there's going to be more of them? I said, I think that there's 31, no, there's 13 that are new builds. So how many that are going into Dysart? So that means that these lake associations and the cottagers are going to have 13 more sites that have to be approved in Dysart. This isn't the only one, or the other 3 that have already been here. I asked Jeff McKay on the meeting on how many more Rogers towers are going to have to even be connected to this Benor Lake one, and he said he didn't know. Like, if it's only 800 meters that this is good for, and almost all of those people on Benor Lake already have cell service, then what is this tower connected to? Because there are no other towers around there. And as in the slides that we just saw, it's that you want, it's trying to stop service, to eliminate the stop service, traveling through the area, which I see as a good idea, but does it have to be on top of the residences? Because that, is obviously the network goal, but I don't feel like that has to be on top of the residences when there was 8 other or 10, more than 10 other sites that had possibilities. I feel like that he has had issues on every tower of being improperly placed, and I understand, and I think that people would understand that you want continuity in them, but still it overlaps and there are other options available that everybody would be more agreeable on. Jeff McKay is here to do a job and is not concerned about the residents of where his towers are affecting people. Our communities are counting on council to protect their interests, and that's why we're elected. It's definitely not that we don't want cell service to our communities. It's just that there are other options or locations that are possible and other solutions besides what Jeff McKay and Rogers is proposing to us, and we need to recognize that.
Thanks, Tammy. So who's answering this, Victoria or?
If I can, first of all, I think we're a little out of sync. I'm Jeff McKay, obviously, the principal of the contractor for this site. Good morning, council and your worship and members of staff. What we'd like to do is Victoria is my director of municipal relations, and she would like to go over a quick overview of this thing. I will say that each of the concerns just raised, that's precisely what the public consultation process is for, to deal with each of these comments. And there are no new comments raised here today that haven't been addressed fully, formally, in the public consultation process. I don't share the opinion that we're not considering residents here. In fact, of all of the contractors that are in the industry, we're known as being the most thorough of the group. We've been doing this for 34 years in our family. This site in particular generates in the aggregate of all sites that are out there, this site in particular generates little concern. This is a better than 9 out of 10 scoring site that addresses each and every one of these concerns. The primary issue with telecommunications towers, which neither the municipality nor our firm has any control over, is coverage. These towers must cover the people they're intended to cover. This tower is sited exactly and precisely where it is in order to make sure that the HD coverage that's required in order to bring that maximization of the IoT, the new high definition, all of those types of products is located precisely where the subscriber base is that needs to use it. Towers can be sterilized completely by relocations as small as 50 meters. These towers propose a risk at no location that's publicly accessible, even at the base of the tower, to health or anything else. Just touching back to a topic that came up on the earlier conversation, the Health Canada 6 issue and the health issue. The proponent's obligation as it relates to health is one of compliance with Safety Code 6. And this is the relevant and not relevant discussion again. With respect to health code or Safety Code 6, the proponent has already filed its certificate of compliance indicating that it will operate at 2% of the Health Canada Safety Code 6 safety level. That means that we're 2,500 times under the threshold for which is defined for potential health effects, and some 125,000 times below that level that is required to produce any of those kinds of effects. So there is no health effects on this. The part that's relevant in the health piece is that we comply with Safety Code 6. The part that is not relevant with respect to Safety Code 6 is any debate over whether Safety Code 6 adequately provides or the data or any of those other pieces that go into it. Those are dealt with at a national level. As it relates to our visibility in other towers, we don't have visibility in other towers. That's EORN's function, and that's part of the reason that they're here. There are a number of peer contractors that do the same service that we do. We have no visibility in their portfolio, and they have no visibility in ours. Our scope is limited to that which is reasonable and relevant in the local environment. So from here, I'd like to introduce Victoria, and she'll do a quick presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions at the end of that. But every question.
I just have one question so I don't lose it.
Sure.
These alternative sites, they've been explored by you?
Everyone.
Everyone,
In
and
fact,
what
our
would be
case-
the reason, what would be the reason that you wouldn't go to one of these other sites?
So the NOMI was the example here that we went through. Coverage is the primary issue. So there's one very telling slide that we'll include in our presentation. You'll see that there that we have the coverage that shows that HD, the wider range, the 4G, all of that kind of stuff. The issue with moving to a different site in the NOMI property in particular is that it displaces the HD coverage from the area where the residents are. The fact of the matter here is you can't put a sewer 500 meters from a house and expect it to deal with it. Telecommunications is no different. That HD coverage of 500 to 800 meter radius is required in order to get good coverage in. At the location that we're capturing hundreds of additional residents into that 5G good coverage radius, which is the product that cluster of people need, that we are not capturing. They completely fall out when we move a kilometer or more south. So anywhere that we move south is a big issue. So the two primary issues that stood out on this site were, given that we comply in all other respects with avoidance of natural heritage, avoidance of any PSW, avoidance of any of those kinds of things, avoidance of any species at risk, avoidance of any of those kinds of issues, and compliance with the local bylaws for setback from the roads and those kinds of things. The only two issues that stand out here, and they're not unique to this tower, they're the same thing with all of them, is the maximization of coverage. So they're not going to put a tower in here that's only going to cover 20% of the subscribers that they can by putting it in the right place. They're going to put it in the right place.
Okay, that sounds good. So
and-
Victoria, you're going to give us a
Yeah, so Victoria?
presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, and thank you, Jeff, also for presenting all that information. We really appreciate it. It was a great summary there. I'm not sure if I can share my screen here. And so, as EORN stated, the first thing that's required is making sure that there's no towers in the area. So this shows the first thing we did before we checked, we're told this is where a tower needs to go. So we check, are there existing towers or infrastructure, water towers, tall buildings that we can use rather than building a new tower. In this case, the closest tower is over 11 kilometers away, so a new tower is required. From there, we're given that search area of this is where the engineers tell us this is exactly where the tower needs to go in order to satisfy those coverage requirements. So the red circle you can see here, that's the coverage, the kind of the exact location they said to look at. We were told it needed to be a 90-meter tower, but after we sent in our candidate, they said that we are able to make a 75-meter tower work. Again, we're trying to cover the people we want to cover, but we're not going to build a 500-meter tower or 100-meter tower if that's not required. We're just putting what is required. This is, I believe, what Tammy was talking about of our candidate selection. So here you can see the red circle on the image. That's the red circle we're given of this is where the tower should be. And that's where we started our search of we are going to analyze each and every property in that area to see what does work and try and make something work. Now, in this area, there's a couple main concerns, and those are mountain peaks that because of the mountain peaks, the signal can't get through it. And the other main concern is hydro. We do need hydro and access to get to the tower. So we've gone through each and every property and analyzed why the candidate we have chosen is the best possible candidate. And again, most of the properties in this circle don't have hydro or access. There's also a lot of environmental considerations and concerns that we needed to stay away. From there, we started working in a radial pattern outside to determine what else could be used. In this case, the green pin is the candidate that we've chosen based off the analysis we've done, that this is the best candidate to cover the greatest amount. The candidate that's not shown here is the Nomi property, which is further down south, but we have analyzed that one as well, and I have a different slide to show that. This is an aerial of the proposed tower. This pin is where it's going to be located. The access will be off Elephant Lake Road. And this shows details and the site plan that just explains that this will be a 5G tower, but also 4G, as Eastern Ontario Region Network stated how that's how towers are being made. We do have a fenced in compound to make sure that the public can't access it to keep it safe. And then some of the specific concerns raised. So again, based off what the federal government says, they say that, well, this isn't relevant to the process. We think that you should absolutely have the information. So again, we did do a Safety Code 6 analysis on this, and our obligation is one of compliance. And here's our Safety Code 6 that states we are absolute worst case on the ground. We will be 2.01% below the allowable Safety Code 6 limit. So that ensures that residents nearby, anyone traveling nearby, anyone is safe. This tower isn't going to be not safe. And that's something really important. Also, environmental considerations. We have done an analysis to make sure that this is in a place that there's no provincially significant wetland. We're outside of those areas. And this shows our existing coverage. So the white is where there's no coverage at all. The red and yellow are very, very minimal coverage, typically no coverage at all. As you start getting to the green, there's some in-car coverage. Light blue, blue and purple are the really great coverage. So I know it's hard to see in this picture, but there's a little spot right here, and that shows where our tower is. There's a teeny tiny little bit of Rogers coverage, but not really anything in the area. If we put the tower where we have it proposed, this is how it infills the area, and it shows that the coverage is exactly where it needs to go. There's another tower here, and so our towers, they don't overlap the coverage, but they do make sure that the coverage is where it needs, where the coverage isn't already. We have done some photo simulations. Now we have been told that some of the trees have been removed, so this is just to give you a general understanding. This shows where the compound will be as well as the access. It's curved down here so that you're not looking right up the access. It does help with the visual mitigation. This shows that with those trees, the trees cover a lot of the tower, and that's the intention, is to utilize existing tree coverage. The lighting on the tower is safety is the #1 requirement. So we are required, after we're done this process, to submit to NAV and TC to see what's required. If no lighting is required, that's obviously the best option. But if lighting is required, we will put kind of the required lighting and no extra lighting. Just whatever NAV and TC say for safety. We have completed the public consultation. We have done the public meeting as well. We've mailed out the notices to all residents within 500 meters. Now, part of our consultation is that 500 meters is those who DISART would say, needs to get the notice and should be relevant to this process because they're the ones who get the notice. Almost all of our comments that were received were outside of the 500-meter radius, and actually almost all of them were also outside of the 1 kilometer away from where the tower is. That being said, each and every comment we received, we analyzed and we sent a formal reply to, so they had the information. Here's our public consultation radius. That's showing the 500 meters. We did also place notice in the news. Here's some links for further questions. And then I also did want to share, here's our analysis of the NOMI property. So this shows an overlay with that coverage that I showed earlier, and this is where the proposed tower is. If we move it further to the NOMI property down here and apply that same coverage, all of the residents up here aren't going to get that coverage. So that means we're going from about 350 to 400 subscriber accounts to gain about 50 and lose all of those up there. So that's why if we move the tower further south, it's not going to cover as many residents. And that means that we'll probably eventually need another tower further up north. So that's why if we put the tower where we have it proposed, it will cover that entire area and not miss out on the good coverage for a lot of residents. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. See if I can here. I think it stopped. Do you still see my screen or can you see me?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So again, we did just want to share that we have analyzed each and every property. We chose this property. Well, not every resident likes it. We have chose this property because it seems to be the best property in this location to cover all of the residents in the area without any additional towers. And it is within the coverage radius. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to address them.
Just one other point that I want to make here on the NOMI property and the site in general is the second major concern. So really all concerns are mitigated by the point at which you're 3 times tower height. The reason for that is that the visual issues, so that the tower view to the naked eye diminishes at the point of 3 times tower height to where it's considerably smaller than other local forms of infrastructure like a common hydro wooden pole. The tower at that point has become a needle. So visual mitigation in the local environment is critical, and this is where we really have to include the residents in this. The NOMI property presents a property that would put a tower in a bald field with no visual mitigation at all other than a few trees. The tower would be viewable to a much greater portion of the local population. The proponent has an obligation to integrate the tower in the local environment by using the natural features that are there in order to screen it. The NOMI property is offside with that. It's way offside. We have essentially no visual mitigation at all. Where we are here, there's a substantial bluff on the property and there's substantial forest tree coverage on the property that gives us a level of visual mitigation on this property that's better than 95% of the towers that are put in. That was done deliberately, and there's no other location that gives us the combination of meeting the coverage requirement. So that was the blue in that part. The whole part is we need to have the blue section of that, which is the HG, the 5G part of it, on the maximum population density. And these things are, we need to understand that these things are not a health problem. These things are put on rooftops in urban centers where the antennas are 5 to 8 meters from people. And there's in downtown Toronto areas, for example, you have 40 to 60 facilities within a half a kilometer. These things are everywhere. There's not an issue with having that close to residents. In fact, it's very, very uncommon that you would see numbers under 20 to 30 in that 3 times tower height. Here we're dealing with a 500-meter radius, which is quite a bit larger because it takes in an awful lot more properties in the consultation. But the primary issues here that we can mitigate, because we can't change the lay of the land, are to choose a tower that, number one, must optimize coverage. We can't put in a tower that's only going to cover 30% of the residents that it's intended to cover. The second is we need to integrate it with the local environment. And those two key issues are this tower at this location by far offers the best visual mitigation of any site considered. As it relates to the original search areas are laid out by EORN initially to cover planning areas. So that's why the confusion with the site Kingscote and Luke Lake. The planning area that they need to cover here is that area. It's an iterative process, though, that you need to get out there, you need to view the lay of the land, you need to match it to the subscriber density, and you need to take all of these things into consideration when you determine the property that meets the best of all of the criteria that we've got to work with. And there's a lot of them. This site meets the best of all the criteria that we're working with in every case.
Okay, I think if there's new information here, and I know Tammy doesn't agree with what you're saying here, so.
So, could you bring up the, map with the blue on it after the tower's up? Could you
Yep.
bring that map back up? And can you zoom in on the blue a little more?
And the other picture there, Tori, that shows the subscriber density, maybe a little bit more representative. So what you're seeing here is the blue is the HD area that they're talking about. The blue is the part that needs to be located where it maximizes the number of subscribers. So the greatest number of subscribers are that area. So the dark blue, the light blue, dark blue being HD, light blue being the next coverage level. That's our 5G area of good coverage. The green extends out to include 4G and LTE.
Okay, so what I would like to show is that the line where the road is, Elephant Lake Road, and the corner, how much coverage do you see on the left-hand side of the road compared to the right-hand side of the road where the residents are? On the left-hand side of the road is Algonquin Park,
Yeah, I got you.
and no residents there.
Yeah, I
On
got
the
I got you.
inside of that corner is where the residents are, which is a very minimum blue.
We're talking, we're talking about the total of the dark blue plus the light
Yes.
blue is the coverage area. Victoria, if you can pull up that other picture that we had that showed the two and the difference on them, you'll see how that exactly maps on the subscriber density. So that the one that had the Nomi property and so move up to the top one. Okay, so there's our blue and our blue again. So this is the area, that box is the area that the maximum subscriber density is in. And the dark blue is located over the greatest number of properties. So we actually count the number of properties that are in it. The subscriber density numbers are calculated. So if you move down to the lower one, Victoria, what the top picture showed what's in red. In the bottom picture, the one we're looking at now, we've now moved the blue down to the area of the tower, and you can see that we're covering nothing but the whole west side of the road. And we're not getting any decent blue coverage into any of the subscriber density that's up at the top where all of the residences are. And then on top of that, these towers are 3-sector. So if there's nothing to cover on the west side of the road, it is quite possible that they will install only 2 sectors on here. That's not a problem at all. We're not going to cover somewhere where there's no subscriber. They'll put 2 sectors on here, and they still achieve 100% of the coverage objective. So the tower, as cited, we're talking 300 to 400 residential subscriber accounts. With the property, when we move it further south, we've got 50. That's like 70% of our coverage is wasted. So that's the big issue with this, is that when we move away from where the red circle is there in the top picture, you can see the number of houses that are there. We've counted them. We lose most of the coverage here. So the coverage to the west is not an issue with us. We probably will not put that sector on. These towers are planned by EORN based on subscriber bins for land use projections over the next 50 to 70 years. A tower lifespan from an engineering perspective is 75 years. A lot of them, we've been running AM radio for 93 years now with much taller towers that are still in service to this day. So they're considering what needs to be done 50 years in the future. This is a one and done here. The benefit of the whole Eorn project, and the reason there's such a black hole here, is there's not enough subscribers for this to be financially viable for any carrier to put a tower in. There's just not enough. The only way that this is going to happen is with government money. And this is a basic right under the Constitution Act, that we must fulfill the mandate of providing that coverage to those people under the Constitution Act. So that's the issue that we've got. The coverage and location is ISED and Eorn's jurisdiction. So ISED's jurisdiction through Eorn. Tower type, height, all of those things are exclusively within ISED's jurisdiction. Public proximity to the tower in this case is by no means a concern in consideration of the aggregates of the site. This is far greater than most, and there is no health risk caused by it. So there is not another site, any of the sites that we have considered, and we considered every property that had the potential of being able to do this. There's not another site that comes anywhere even close to this. This stands out as what we call the sweet spot. I know there's a perception sometime that a proponent goes out and the first guy that signs a lease, the tower goes to municipal. I think that does exist. It certainly doesn't exist in our portfolio.
Well, Tammy, one more question maybe. And we'll move
So
on.
you're saying that there are 300 to 400 residences in that top corner of Benor Lake?
Subscriber accounts. So
that area.
we're using a rule of thumb of 2 subscriber accounts per property owner. Now, the other thing is, keep in mind, Bell has nothing to do with this. This is Rogers. We're not supplying Bell service. Bell has their own deal. Bell
Right.
will likely go on this tower as well, because they're not going to be able to provide 5G coverage here either. It's expected that they would co-locate on this tower in the near future.
I would, I can't believe that there's 400 people on that lake in that small area,
So
because
number of
on the-
properties we counted, and we
Okay.
used 2. There's also a seasonal
Two
community
per
there.
property though.
Oh, so that's half. 200, you think there's 200? Okay, so if there's 200 and you move it to Nomi, do you understand that there's 50 units going in at Nomi? And that there are the same amount of lots in the same size of lots on the Nomi side as well as up there?
They're not, it's nowhere near the number. You see the number that's there.
Okay,
50
so
is
your
our-
dark blue and your light blue, your maps are totally different. You have no coverage in Algonquin Park on your red line on the second map, but on the first map with
Okay,
the
okay,
deep blue line is all over 50% in Algonquin Park. So I'm a little confused.
Yeah, go back up, just, sorry, there's a couple of
Well,
questions there.
I think he's taken one of the, it doesn't have to point in that direction.
Yes, we don't
I
need
think
to.
I heard him say.
Yeah, our objective is to cover the subscriber density. So if we have coverage pointing at Gophers, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we're covering the area that we need to cover. When we move further south from that, we're covering far more of the area to the west where there's no subscribers. And the number of subscriber accounts, which is number of properties times 2. So and that's a very conservative number. The average Canadian now holds 6 to 8 wireless devices. So we're using 2 subscriber accounts. Husband and wife generally both have a cell phone in most areas of the province. We realize that's lower here because the service wasn't available. But landline is being deprecated at huge rates. That landline is just not the product that people need to bring broadband internet into their homes. And it's broadband internet for things like we're doing right now that people need in order to conduct their business and lives.
Well, it looks like we're never going to get an agreement on this, so
No, you know,
Consultation.
we can't make everybody happy and our obligation under the protocol, I mean, they recognize this. This is no different than putting in a sewer or a line of hydro or a rail line. You're not going to make everybody happy. There's nothing we can do to make people happy. Our obligation is to comply to the best of our ability. Now, there's no absolute compliance requirements here either, because they recognize that a tower needs to go where a tower needs to go. If you,
Okay, I think we've heard this.
okay.
Pat, do you have something?
Yeah, just a quick question there, Jeff. If you pull out that appendix 1 where it shows the blue where your tower proposals existing, can you do that? Just a simple question, you know, if you know, I think it's Tammy saying, you know, it's kind of centered and you got your area of blue that's critical for service. It's up in Algonquin Park. You know, if you move the tower over to where the 6 is, let's say, to recenter that blue area, are you in shadows or is that just doesn't
Yeah,
work?
see, so it's a combination. You got to look at the dark blue plus the light blue. What we need to
I
do is
understand.
we need to cover both sides of the lake within those two. So, you know, the ideal spot would be to be right smack on top of the residences close to the water, but that's not going to happen right there. That's where we need to be.
Right.
Um,
Thank you.
the only spot that works for maximizing setbacks in the aggregate from the total number of residents is at the planned location. It's possible we could have been just on the other side of the road, but obviously we don't have a willing landlord there. So the coverage that we have, you see the little points, the 3 points on that tower as well. The likelihood is that 2 sectors will be put on. The bottom two, those 2 sectors will be put on, and the third will be left for future if the area does develop in the next 50 years in any way. They'd add it at that time. But we're not missing anything. We're getting the entire full coverage with those 2 sectors at this location that will bring 4G coverage, meeting the minimum requirement all the way to everybody, all the way down to the bottom of the lake and past and in every direction. But it puts all of the HD coverage exactly where it needs to be.
Okay, thank you.
One last question.
I agree with Pat, because above the 8 is the person that was on your Zoom call that was for the tower, and that's where his property is. And I think he is agreeable to put the tower there. That way you wouldn't have however many hundreds of thousands of dollars this tower goes up, and then you're not going to put 2 panels on it because it faces nobody but Algonquin Park. And you would have more coverage on it because you're just on the other side of the lake. It will get all of the residences that you think are there, plus you will have more down the lake.
Yeah, Ken, there are a lot of interrelated things in this. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, we like it here, let's put it here. We can't make a TX connection on the other side of the lake. There's a mountain right there. This is the only place we can get the transmission connection, and we had to increase the height of the neighboring tie site that we're going to by 40 meters in order to get a signal in here. We're 60 meters below the top of those mountain peaks. So TX is, if we can't get the signal in, we can't operate. We looked at putting it at the old airstrip on the other side. We're blocked in all directions with a TX. There's no possibility of doing anything there.
Even with the tower on the top of the hill.
Can't go on the top of the hill. It's shadows. We're trying to get down to the residents at the bottom of the hill. We'd have to point the antennas right down in the trough.
But there's always already a tower there.
Top of the hill worked for Analog Technologies. That's 3 kilometers away. It's completely outside of our radius. It doesn't do anything for us at all.
Maybe the technology needs to be.
Yes.
Technology is, it's an issue. This is mathematical propagation. So as you increase bandwidth, you decrease the coverage radius. And that's a way of life that we got to live with.
One quick question there yet on the 500, whoever was notified, you said was 500 meters?
Yes, yeah.
How many people got back to you in that, who was negative and who was positive?
3 in the 500 meters made comments. Victoria's got the actual So, so 500 meters is the rule of thumb for what's considered reasonable and relevant to the local environment. 500 meters plus may be reasonable and relevant to the subject matter, but not to the local environment. Our scope only deals with the local environment as defined. So I think 3 in total. Victoria, do you want to pipe in 3 in total?
Yes, so within the 500 meters, there was 3 comments in total, and 2 of them acknowledged that their comments were all answered.
And sorry, how many people was in that 500 meter that could have responded to you?
34 properties.
Yes, 34.
34.
Plus,
Okay.
yeah, plus circulation to the Lake Association, the
Tammy, I said
Okay, thank you.
last time, but go ahead, and one more.
I am the closest one to this tower and I did not get a notification. And I had several people that also were within that 500 meters that did not get notification. I still have not ever got notification even after your meeting. Why is that?
I'll tell you why that is. MFIPA no longer allows the municipality to give out names. We were only given addresses. If your address on file with the municipality is not the right address, it won't go to the right address. If there is no mailbox on that site, it will not go to that address. In that case, you're provided multiple other forms of contact, including newspaper and including 2 signs, one of them right across the road from your farm, which you've seen, obviously.
Well, Tammy's expressing what she hears from the residents, and that's what
I understand
councillors
that.
do.
Yeah.
So we'll have a resolution here now.
Be it resolved that council concurs with the proposed telecommunications tower on Elephant Lake Road, site C8604, civic address 1024 South Algonquin Road. A 30-meter vegetation buffer shall be implemented and or maintained around the proposed tower, and lighting shall be the minimum required to meet safety standards. The tower access road is to be designed and screened with vegetation to minimize the visual impact of the tower by immediate neighbors. This resolution confirms that the consultation process completed by Rogers Communications Inc. met the requirements of the municipality's special policy number 38.
Mover and seconder. Walt and Carm, all in favor?
We record this.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to record the vote?
Yeah.
Tammy wants a recorded nay vote. Any other recorded nay vote? Well, it's, okay,
Got it.
got it. Was carried then. Okay, so now, did we not hear this already? But I guess we are going to hear it again. Okay, so we got a policy to establish a local municipal protocol for tower proposals. Is that Jason again, or?
No, that's me, Mayor, and through you, and this is kind of keeping with the same theme. So at the council meeting in February, a notice of motion was passed directing staff to bring back a report to consider rescinding the current cell tower policy and or consider other policies. Just quickly looking at our internal policy, it was originally adopted by council in March of 2014. The purpose of the policy is to outline the procedure to be followed by applicants wishing to establish telecommunication facilities within the municipality. So I didn't have that much information to go on. I wasn't exactly sure what information council was seeking, so I tried to provide as much relevant information as possible. So it is quite a large report. The report includes policy examples from other jurisdictions. It includes comments from proponents, such as Rogers itself, or as well as the approval authority being ISED. The report also includes policy direction from the municipality's official plan and strategic plan. And lastly, it includes a detailed summary and review of the federal guiding policy document. This is the policy that the proponents would be required to follow, or they are required to follow. It does outline the steps that they would need to take if the municipality did not have a policy. So I understand that the report is quite long, and through you, Mayor, I don't know how much council would like me to present today. If council wishes, I can go on and compare some of the similarities and differences between the policies. as well as maybe highlight some of the key components of that federal policy. But I look to council as how do they want to proceed?
Well, I don't know just how much detail we want to go into here, but that policy was derived for a particular situation on Little Canis in 2014. I don't, is there an average for rural? We need something that applies to rural Ontario. Do we have some right around us here, say in the county, or?
He's linked them in the reports.
Or do you want to come forward with, take the time and come forward with another report next month?
I seek direction from council, and I'm not sure what you're asking with regards to the rural areas. Are you asking if there's a policy that applies specifically to?
Well,
rural
I'm looking for policies from other similar municipalities. If that would make it much simpler for us to make a decision, I think.
Jeff's got 4 different policies.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't.
No, I know you don't have it.
I don't
ready
have it
there.
in front of me.
I don't know if you want to, like you mentioned, Jeff, if you want to just highlight maybe what some of those things are. if you
Yeah,
want
sure.
council
You want to
consider.
highlight those?
Sure, and I did provide some policies, one for Highlands East, one for Algonquin Highlands, one for Lake of Bays, and one for, pardon me, I'm gonna have this, Alton Hills. It should be noted that Minden Hills does not have a policy. So just, I'm just gonna pull up my notes. In terms of the policy review, like there are many similarities between these policies, but there's also several differences, and some of them might be considered enhancements as well. Most policies do discourage placement of towers in waterfront areas, environmentally protected areas. Many include setbacks from residences. They encourage camouflage or monopine structures. Most do include comments that limit impact on lighting. And they all have very similar, or at least include public consultation processes, including notice, public meetings, that kind of thing. Some of the differences that I noted, some of the other policies include tiered options for the review process, such as a major tower process versus a minor tower process, based on specific criteria, such as maybe setbacks to natural heritage features, maybe setbacks to residences, and those tiered processes would determine what public consultation process they had to go through. For instance, if it wasn't close to a residence or a natural heritage feature, they might be exempt from the public consultation process or the review process. If it was close, maybe they had to go through a more enhanced process. Some of the policies were pretty clear when they outlined what the federal jurisdiction was, and I identified what cannot be used by municipalities when assessing proposals, such as compliance with Health and Safety Code 6, as well as impacts on property values. And one thing of note, some policies did include provisions that the carrier remove the tower when it was no longer in use, which I thought was interesting. So that was some of the major similarities and differences I highlighted.
Well, I started to read it and I see that pretty near all the policies have things about radioactivity in them and all the things that, and the same townships are passing them. So I just don't know what good the policy does when it has to go to ISAD and you can't get anywhere with the issues that concern people. So I don't know whether, go ahead.
If Minden Hills, was it Minden Hills that didn't have one?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, what, do we need one?
I guess.
We're not required to have one. If we do have one, the proponents are required to follow our policy. So unless the proposals are exempt, they are required to follow the local land use authority policy, which we are the land use authority. They must still address concerns of the municipality and of the public. So they still have to provide notice. They still have to provide the municipality with the comments from the public, and they still have to request concurrence from the municipality. The one notable difference is that there isn't the opportunity for the public to engage via a public open house or a public meeting.
But didn't that just happen?
Yeah.
Well, the applicant Rogers had that public open house with the residents around Benor Lake for that last application. Through the federal process, that public open house is not required. They
thanks.
receive the comments in writing and address them in writing and provide us those written comments, but there's no opportunity for the public to actually have a
So that was just out of Roger's courtesy to provide that. Is that correct or no?
No, that's outlined in Dysart's policy. So our policy requires them to have that open house. So if we did not have a policy, they wouldn't be required to do that.
Okay, well, I think it's important to have public comment on it, of course, but I don't want to make it too complicated either on the other side of it. Anyway,
I see that Highlands East has a 500-meter setback instead of 1,000 like we do, and their tower is on Clark Road that just got installed, and there is nobody around it. So I don't know how that got passed, or what, if that's maybe not even a Rogers Tower, and if it's not a Rogers Tower, then why can't that happen in Dysart? And because we're not implementing policy 38, you're absolutely right. Why in the world do we have it? Because we're not abiding by it anyways. And maybe the other townships aren't abiding. They make it look good that we have a policy and that we're concerned about the residents and what they have for input. But why are we even having it when we're not abiding by it anyways?
I agree. So if we had a policy that required public input, the public consultation process, I mean, it's maybe as useless as it is.
I agree, the public, you can go back through all of Rogers' public inputs and they're all basically the same. So why even have them either? Because it's all going to end up the same.
Okay, we're really making progress here. Anyway, so what we're saying is we might as well have no policy. Is that what you're saying, Tam?
Yeah, because nobody's abiding by the one we have to begin with. So if we want to say, oh, well, you know what, that shouldn't have passed because it didn't follow policy 38 because it's 1,000 meters and residents are within 200 meters. And so it wouldn't even apply to the Highlands East new one because it's 500 meters. And there's several that are within that 500 meters. So the tower would have went up anyways. And how did Highlands East get a tower that is way up on Clark Road with nobody around?
Nobody. So we should rescind the policy 38 then?
Nobody's using it anyways.
No. Jeff, you have a comment?
Yes, I just had a couple comments and I just wanted to clarify for council so that if we have policy 38, they need the open house. If we don't have policy 38, there is still a public consultation process that the applicants must follow. They still need to provide notice. They still need to take those public comments from the members of the public. They still need to respond to those. And those comments still are provided to council for review. The main difference is the open house. So I just wanted to notify you that public comments still are obtained and addressed, or they're supposed to be. The one thing I noted based on Tammy's comments with regards to setbacks not being followed, a lot of these policies that we were reviewing are dated in terms of the setback requirements based on today's technology. So I think I heard Eorn speak about that during their presentation, and even Rogers during their presentation, that when a lot of these policies were implemented, it was a different technology that could be projected further from the tower. New towers are required to be closer. So I think if we were to update policies, we would want to consider what those setbacks are and maybe try and, as you can see by Highlands East, they reduce theirs too. So it's something to consider.
If we're going to let Rogers walk all over us and not abide by our policy, we wouldn't have to have any setback because he's putting it within 200 meters of residents. So what are we going to have? A 200-meter resident? That one won't even work because they're going ahead and doing it in less than that. So if we're not going to abide by it, like there's no sense having it because what do you put 50 meters? Like they're setting them right on top of the people. And how many times we have not said, none of us have said anything about health concerns. And how many times did Jeff McKay how many times did he mention health concerns in his presentation? And we didn't even mention it once. And because it's not supposed to be mentioned about health concerns, but he mentioned it 4 or 5 times.
Okay, anything else? We got to move on here. I don't know what the answer to this is, quite frankly.
Well,
If there is an avenue for public consultation, no matter what happens, then I don't feel we need it, but that's my
Neither,
opinion.
I agree. Might as well rescind it.
Yep.
So you'll bring something forward to rescind it then? Boy, we got it right here. Okay. Let's do it.
Jeff, are you okay if I amend that resolution to rescind it?
That's up to council. It's fine by me. I was just bringing information. I hadn't really considered the full impacts of rescinding it. I was just trying to bring information for council, but that's at their discretion.
Is there anything else, Jeff, on policy 38 that we don't abide by that should be in there? Like, what is it that we do abide by?
Well, I think when it comes to policy 38, it's not prescriptive. So it uses words like encouraged. It uses words like the preferred location. So I think what council needs to look at is impact. So when you're talking about setback from residences, is your impact, what are you concerned about? Is it concerned about a view, or are you concerned about the health impacts? I think that's what you need to look at. So
We can't
It's
look
not-
at health impacts.
No, it's outside our mandate.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, so we have a resolution.
Be it resolved that council accepts the report on policy 38, a policy to establish a local municipal protocol for the review of telecommunication tower proposals. And further, that council hereby rescinds policy 38.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Here. Okay. Now Godfrey's been waiting quite a while here. He's 40 minutes late.
Can we take a 5-minute break? Just. At least
I can. Why do you need?
I think they're all, might have been a couple of people asking to have a quick break.
Because
They can maybe just go though.
okay, we're all done with EORN then.
Okay, thank you very much for the time.
you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Man, it's so complicated that they got to answer for everything, haven't they? Yeah. Well, we'll have to shut him down. This is fun. Sorry, Godfrey, you're quite a bit held up quite a bit here. We're really pressed for time, so.
Don't need a lot of time.
Well, I think you got a pretty important subject, so.
It's essentially.
turn it on. He needs to turn it on.
Yeah.
I'm technologically illiterate,
Press the button.
and that's why I'm here. You've all read the letter which I sent, okay? And that says most of what it needs to be talked about. And then on the budget last Thursday, provincial budget last Thursday,
I saw that.
page 76, there's 2 paragraphs. One deals with the long-term issue in that Lakehead and University of Guelph are looking to put together people from Northern Ontario, and they're putting up, but that program actually won't kick into place till the fall of 24-25, and then you're 4 years out, so we're another 5 years out. Okay, and then the other issue, of course, what happens today, and Mina had talked about coming in via Zoom, but she got tied up with a livestock emergency. And so I don't know.
Where
if
is
you-
the closest livestock vet right now?
The closest one, depending on, that will come, okay, it depends on who will come. What we have right now is there's Dr. Haley Martin from Bracebridge Country. who comes for some people. There's a Dr. Corey from the Lindsay Vet Clinic who comes from some people. Tammy, you use Gilson, but they don't come up here.
No, but Serge from Peterborough.
Peterborough. And then, so those are kind of the ones that will come into the community. And other than that, you're on your own. I myself don't have a vet at this moment in time. And so there's, and then what we also are dealing with is, I'm talking to you as a Dysart ratepayer. It's actually a county issue.
Yes. I understand
Okay,
that.
and so, but I figured if I start here and you guys say this is something the county needs to address,
It is.
then Dysart endorses it and move it up the food chain.
Well, large animals are about the same situation as humans are right now.
It's
When it comes to getting ready.
actually, if you really want the truth of it, we're probably in worse shape, believe it or not,
That's not good.
because it's pretty scary. And as long as, if you're in a community that's okay, you're okay. If you're in a community that isn't, you don't have somebody,
You're in trouble.
you're in trouble. Halliburton County, we're part of the veterinary assistance program. I'm trying to fill you in quickly on topic that you all not are dealing with. But there's a program from Renfrew, North Hastings, Halliburton, Muskoka, and the Bruce Peninsula to the Manitoba border that provides assistance to have veterinarians in your communities. Halliburton County is one of those 5 areas, I believe it is, in the north that have issues. And the same issue is actually occurring in southwestern Ontario because the demographics of agriculture have changed. And I was speaking with a guy in Sarnia, and he has to have his vet comes from over an hour away because we've gone to cash cropping versus livestock. So the demographic has shifted. And the other issue we're dealing with, of course, is that our source of veterinarians has traditionally been the University of Guelph, and they graduate approximately 120 a year. The dilemma has been for the last good number of years, in fact, almost generation, is they're only graduating about 10 large animal veterinarians. The retirement rate is more than 10 a year. And it's the same as in medical. Many of your doctors, instead of being general practitioners, many of your veterinarians, instead of being large animal, mixed animal practices, they're specifically small animals. And healthcare, if you look at privatization of clinics and you used veterinary care as a model, you can see where it will quickly flounder. Because essentially, veterinary care is privatized medical care. And it's gone to where the dollars are.
Yeah.
And in our community, okay, like let's not be delusional about Halliburton County. I've been one of very few that have made my living in agriculture.
Yes, you are.
Okay, there's probably on a hand, you can count all that have kind of are doing it. And then what we do have is, and this is our critical market, is what we have homesteaders. These are the people that kind of, they want to do their own thing. They do their own thing. They have small plots of land, few animals. They try and raise something for themselves and for their neighbors. And that's, a lot of those people actually need the assistance of a veterinarian at a higher level than many of the experienced practitioners. Like Tammy does almost everything herself now. Okay. Just because you just learn to do it and you do it. And with time and experience that happens. But what we saw, and especially the demographic that in the last 3 years, there's been a lot of little properties purchased by people. And then the first thing they want to do is get a cow or sheep or goat or something, chickens.
Yeah.
And the expertise isn't there and the backup in our community isn't there.
Well, I think you should send your letter to the county, to the warden. And then we can, Walt and I can push it from there.
Can I-
Yes. Terry?
What are you proposing? Have you got an idea?
Essentially, I'm I think if Dysart Township, and I have a list of a number of people in my letter, and there's probably a bigger list that we can generate. I went from the perspective that I'm part of CFFO, but there's OFA and NFU and all the commodity groups in Halliburton County is basically BFO. But there's all the different commodity groups. And so basically, if Dysart Township sent a letter to the minister and all people associated, and just add the fact that this is an important issue to our community. Like, yes, it is agriculture, but one of the things that, and I'll give this to you guys, it was just the one page I quickly wrote up yesterday. You know, it's a couple of paragraphs. In this second paragraph, which I forgot to mention, there also is money for new graduates up to about 900,000. And my expectation, I have a question into Larry Scott's office, do we qualify? And my personal expectation is that we do. In theory, Halliburton County should qualify for the underserviced area. Under the veterinary assistance program, we are already considered an isolated area. That's because we're more than 70 kilometers from another large animal practitioner. And then agriculture in Halliburton County is vital to those who choose to produce their own food, and fundamental basic infrastructure to support agriculture includes the availability of a large animal vet. Like, it's an infrastructure issue, economic infrastructure issue. And the production of food is not just an issue for agriculture. It's a fundamental part of society. When agriculture has a problem, society has a problem, and we all have a role in the solution.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you want to point fingers, everybody has screwed up, including us as farmers.
It's usually the case.
And you can just go down the pipeline and everybody has ownership. What I've noticed is the most difficult thing is decision makers need to make decisions.
Yep.
And they seem to struggle to make decisions. And, you know, been there, done that in my own way. And I know you guys have your own decisions.
I have approached this to Lori Scott, and her answer was, you're not unique. It's
We are not.
Yeah, it's all over. And you know, we're subsidizing doctors and we still can't get them.
Yes, and in further thought, this here idea of bringing in another veterinarian, a new graduate. The reality is, in a community such as us, they will always have a mixed practice. Well, then what we're going to start with is we're going to bring in somebody that knew they have to upgrade, you know, just to start, just to turn the key on and service a farmer. They probably have about a $30,000 large animal mobile, just
to start.
Plus your student debt, plus housing in Halliburton County. So how do we entice someone to come to our community to serve our local community?
Any other questions for Godfrey?
No other questions other than we do. It's important, and I don't know who we got to notify or who we got to put a letter out to, but let's get them out.
If we bring it from at the county level, it'll have a lot more weight than coming from one municipality.
Yes,
We have to, go ahead.
but it's also one of those things that if many of the municipalities, if one municipality starts pushing, like the Eastern
Yeah.
Ontario Wardens Council, I know has talked about this.
Yeah.
And Southwestern Ontario, I don't think could realize how big their problem is yet. And Northern Ontario is working on a couple of programs to try and fill gaps.
Maybe we need to import some.
Well, that's talked about.
Yeah.
It is there, and basically that's, if you guys don't have questions, and if I can work with
Yeah.
Tamara and formulate the letter that I think needs to be in it and help you guys out that way. And this here is what I wrote the other day, if you want to, I'll give it to you.
And we do have a resolution that directs us to take it to the county, so.
Thank you.
Can I? So you think starting with the letters is the start of it and that would produce something? But Lori Scott's right. everybody's gonna have the same problem. And you're saying more than 10 people are retiring and they're only bringing 10. So the problem really isn't that there isn't enough students. It's because higher up is not, they're choking it off and saying, oh, we can only take so many students at
Well,
Guelph.
The dilemma at Guelph, and this is where it gets delicate, is because you don't want to poke too many fingers, but anyway, the dilemma is agriculture is a priority for the province of Ontario. The University of Guelph is a training center. They have 120 slots, but they're not choosing people. They're not choosing people that want to work in agriculture. Okay, they're choosing people, their criteria, and it's been publicly talked about. Their criteria is you must have X number of academic marks. Okay, livestock experience is not necessarily a criteria. You have to have academia to get into the course. Well, then what happens is you get these people that are very, very bright, but have never seen a cow, a horse, a pig, a chicken in their life. Okay, and then then you get into the criteria of what is the university actually teaching and the priorities of teaching.
That's the problem.
And so it's only a part of the problem.
Godfrey, who's Casey Cox using? Just Lori then, or
He has a unique situation.
so Lori's retired now, right? She's out.
He is retired, and because she has, don't ask a lot of questions,
Fair enough.
but because she was a vet in the past, she can do it, but she doesn't do anything else. And then maybe, and our local vet, because she withdrew from the contract, and then
I was going to say, that was my next statement, is if May used to do it, she pulled out.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
business reasons.
For business reasons. So
Business
another quick fix might be if there was some way to subsidize her to make it more financially viable. And I don't mean through the farmer, I mean through the government, like you said, regarding the doctors. But the other statement I want to say too is that I know 2 kids right now that are going through vet school as we speak. So the problem now is, are they going to come back home? Are they going to go for bigger money in an equestrian environment down south or whatever? So anyway.
Yeah, and the issue, the veterinary assistance program, okay, which we are a part of, it's funded by the Ministry of Northern Development. Okay, and that particular program has been sloppily operated, is a polite way to say it, in that currently the Ontario Veterinary College, or all the regulatory body recommends that veterinarians charge about $3 a kilometer for seat time. Because basically what you're doing when you're driving, you're supposed to be making about the same revenue.
Sure.
You should
As you
be,
said, yeah.
okay, working. What has happened is the Ministry of Northern Development is currently paying about $1.10, $1.20 a kilometer. Okay. Well, when you hire a locum, like we locally like Amay was trying to do, it actually cost her money to send
That's why.
another person out to make calls. She was doing it because that's what she loves to do. Okay, don't get me wrong. It was a business decision that she stopped.
Mhm.
And it was a business decision. All of you guys, when you look at the numbers, say, we love doing this, but we ain't doing it because we can't afford to.
Yeah, it's business. Okay, so we'll have this resolution then. Thanks, Godfrey, and that's a very important subject, and we will work on it. Thank you.
That's just, and contact me.
Okay. Thanks for all your work.
Resolution?
Yep, resolution.
Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the delegation from Godfrey Tyler detailing the need for a local large animal veterinarian in the community, and further that Dysart et al. Council supports moving this discussion to the county of Halliburton.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Tammy, all in favor? Carry. Thank you. Want to take a 10-minute break? See if I can still stand up.
Don't move.
I have to at some point. Okay, we got Nancy there.
Are we good to go, Laurie?
Yep.
Okay. Be it resolved that council adjourn its regular meeting at 11:30 a.m. to discuss matters pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended pertaining to a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization, public works, wastewater, infrastructure, and to discuss matters pursuant to section 239, 3.1 of the Municipal Act as amended for the purpose of educating or training the members on planning policy.
Mover and seconder. Nancy and Walt, all in favor? Carried. And we have a resolution to go into close.
That was that. So now we're going to go into closed. Laurie's going to switch it over.
Yep.
They're coming.
Ron's coming, we're gonna be inundated here.
Marie, turn your mic on.
Okay,
Yep.
well, we were going to do the reports of committees.
It'll be,
When we lose our volume. Yeah, we can deal with it. Is there anything, I'll start going through this, anything from Harcourt, Tammy? West Guilford, Carm? Okay. Good. Okay, Nancy, Rails End?
Had their meeting, they're updating their strategic plan. They've got a lot of exhibitions coming up and looking very much forward to the Art and Craft Festival, hoping that the ground is suitable for the vendors. There's 100 vendors instead of 130. There's 130 applications. And I do believe one of the members of the board are going to try to attend the playground committee so that they'll have some positive input and work as a community membership as opposed to different factions, try to work together to make it work for everyone.
Good. Goodness, thank you, Nancy. BIA, Pat, any?
Marie, that meeting's tonight, so I'll be
Okay.
better versed next meeting.
Okay. Harvest Halliburton. I don't remember who's on that. Not Barry. Source Protection, have you had a meeting there, Barry? Aren't you on that? Who in the world is on that? Not you, Walt. I'm sure we got,
Obviously.
you're on the Upper Trent then.
Nothing there. We have something coming up on April 21st.
So we don't have anybody on Source Protection?
Oh, we may. I just don't know who it is off the top of my head. I'll be able to search it in a second.
Okay,
It doesn't matter really. We don't have a report.
and the Bioenergy Corporation, I think that's dead. That's not going anywhere. Okay.
So we're going, just a note on that is,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and contact them and
Yeah.
suggest we're gonna.
He's called me and I said, Well, there's just no point. We're not gonna tear the town all to pieces again.
Yeah, we currently have a corporation in place though for it, so
Yeah,
we'll
we
have
have
to
to cancel
formally
it.
disband that. So we'll bring that forward.
Okay, John, we got the landfill hours.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a follow-up report from the report that was presented at the March 14th meeting of council. At that meeting, Dysart staff had recommended changes to the summer operating hours at Dysart's waste disposal sites. Those changes would take place for the summer hours, May 1st to September 30th, and they would start May 1st of this year. Council deferred making a decision until further information was received at this meeting. As a reminder, the rationale for changing some of the landfill hours is to provide better customer service. As council is aware, we have a lot of residents and ratepayers trying to access the sites before 11 a.m. on Sundays and holiday Mondays. We currently don't open until 11 a.m. In addition, vehicle counts indicate that only 3.72% of vehicles use those sites on Sundays or holiday Mondays after 5 p.m. Council asked staff to also look at adding additional hours to Sundays and holiday Mondays. Because that was not included in the 2023 environmental management budget, it was felt that this would be a cost overrun. And so for the purposes of this report, the options being presented do not include additional hours. It is working within the current timeframes that we have for summer Sundays and holiday Mondays. So we're going to be presenting a few different options for you. I'm going to share my screen. What I'm sharing is exactly what is presented in the report. It's just so that you can see it a little bit bigger. So option A is what was presented originally at the previous meeting. In this case, at all 5 sites, the Sundays and holiday Mondays would be, instead of 11 to 7, they would be 10 to 5. That was option A, which was originally presented at the beginning of the month. Option B would see Halliburton, Harcourt, and West Guildford landfills switch to 10 to 5, while Kinesis Lake and West Bay would remain open 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Sundays and holiday Mondays in the summertime. Option C is this would see Halliburton, Harcourt, and West Guildford landfill simply shift their hours from 10 to 6 as opposed to 11 to 7, and Kinesis Lake and West Bay would stay 11 to 7. Option D has all 5 sites shifting their hours from 11 to 7 to 10 to 6 on Sundays and holiday Mondays. And then finally, option E would be no change. Sundays and holiday Mondays would remain 11 to 7. So those are all the options being presented to council today. Because we will need to be printing the waste management user cards to go out in the tax bill that will be going out in the springtime, we will need to get these hours confirmed for the printing of that and preparing of any promotional materials to let ratepayers know about changes to summer hours.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what's your wish? Don't all speak at once.
I think we should make one time, just the one time. It's my own opinion, like not switch them around so much. Be tough for everybody.
Have the same on all the land,
Correct. Yeah.
which is the option of 10 to 6 and holiday Mondays, I guess.
Correct. So the options, if you want to make it consistent across all 5 sites, one option would be 10 to 5 at all sites, which is option A. Option D would be 10 to 6. And then option E would be no change.
I don't know after 5 others. What do you think?
I'm either in favor of leaving it as it is or 10 to 6. That's I don't want to take away any time from especially in the summer months. So
I'm the same. I know we've had from my ward, definitely they had some concerns about it closing before 7. So I guess worst case for me would be 10 to 6 or
Leave it the
at
way it
is
is.
11 to 7.
Leave it the way it is? Hmm? Any? Yeah, okay. What were you saying?
10 to 6 might accommodate both ends.
Yeah.
You've got people that want to get earlier.
Well, they're used to that now too. 10 to 6, aren't
It's
they?
11 to 7. now, but-
It's 11 to 7. Yeah, because they can't go out early enough. So that's still a little addition to the budget, but not that significant.
So if currently all 5 sites on Sundays and holiday Mondays in the summer are 11 to 7. If we switch it from 10 to 6, there'd be no change to the budget. 'Cause we're just adjusting the start time and the end time by 1 hour. So there'd be no change there.
We good with that? Okay,
And that's option which?
That would be option D, all sites change Sundays, holiday Mondays, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay. Read
Okay.
the resolution then?
Yep.
Be it resolved that council directs staff to implement option D, changes to summer, May 1st to September 30th landfill hours of operation starting May 1st, 2023. And further, the council directs staff to revise Schedule A of bylaw number 2021-29 with the changes to summer landfill hours of operation starting May 1st.
mover and seconder. Walt and Nancy, all in favor? Carry. Okay. Andrew. Parks and Recreation.
Good afternoon. Just a quick little report. I'll try to be as quick as I can. I attached the Parks and Recreation project update for your review. And just a quick summary. Spring has now arrived. Park staff will shortly be transitioning from the role of winter maintenance duties to general parks duties. Over the next 2 months, staff will begin spring cleanup and summer startup, including adding additional garbage cans throughout town and throughout the parks. They'll also be opening up privies that were shut down over the winter, installing docks in town, maintaining and inspecting all playgrounds, boat launches and beaches. And pretty much the same for the arena with the Kobe Islander coming up on Easter weekend. That the ice will be taken out the following week. And we'll be conducting our annual maintenance at the arena.
Andrew, those low areas beside the walkways in Lake Park. Is there not some way of putting some stone in the bottom there and some topsoil on top and letting it
Yes, sir.
drain a little better?
Yes, there is. We've been adding topsoil over the years, but we definitely need some.
Well, topsoil just
stone.
goes to mud.
Yeah, well, we need definitely some stone on the bottom there to create a footing, I guess you could say.
At least to take a bit of water, the stone would.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we definitely can do that.
And the other area in the park there, where there's just to the left, there's a flower bed there and a tree in the middle.
Yep.
And that 6 by 6 is all rotten, it's pressure treated.
Mhm.
I think we should take it right out of there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that
I'm
too.
not, and that's what the maintenance people in the park thought too.
Yeah, and same as the ones right by the playground. They're all rotten there.
Yeah,
True,
they're all
John.
rotten. When they're rotten, they're rotten.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This might not be the time and place, but when I was in the park over the last few days, where the projected new playground equipment's gonna go, there's an area to the right of it that I think that I'm told that it's a very not very safe ground for kids to be running around on. There's gravel, there's low water lays in there. I'm wondering if when we're doing the park ground equipment update, if we could consider what the cost would be to bring that piece of property up to, where it was really level and flat, where kids could run around and maybe kick a soccer ball around or something. Because we're gonna tear up the park pretty good. Be a good time to do that into the park.
Yeah, and I think, Andrew, you can confirm, but I think that every year we've put some money into, basically it's been topsoil trying to bring it up, but it sinks as quickly as it does. It's.
No, I think
not bad, but,
I
yeah.
just was there and I was talking to somebody and they knew a little bit more about it than I did. And I was asking, what is this area really used for? And they said, it's not being used like it should be used.
Yeah.
So that it might cost us a little more money than we think, but I think it'd be a great project for the kids to be able to run around.
That's the first proposal on the plan they did of the park was to fix the drainage.
Yeah.
Build it up.
I agree with Walt, that on the right-hand side, there's a row of spruce trees
Yeah.
over there. It's a mound, you know, can't get, you know, people with disabilities can't get up, strollers and everything else.
Can't get out.
Cut that all out, and then it also provides a bit more area for Rails End or farmers market if it, you know, if it moves or stays or whatever, then there's more room for everybody, but
That's actually included in the master plan as well.
more usable space. Does anybody know why that mound was ever originally put there?
As a viewing area is my understanding. when
You're
they were
supposed to sit
using
up there and view the lake,
or sports games.
bunker. There's a
Okay,
space
if I could-
underneath it you call in case of war.
If I can just answer Walt's question there about that low area to the right of the playground. About 5 or 6 years ago, we put about 20 tons of gravel in there and then topsoil on top of that. But now that we're doing the playground this year, maybe we can use some of that material there instead of trucking it away. We can use some of that material to fill up that area.
Is Ann away?
Yeah, like I said, I just think that we're doing something to the park there and we're just, it's gonna be, the ground's gonna be torn up in a lot of places coming in. And so why not keep going right down and finish it off right now and do it right?
Yeah.
So it's usable for, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Andrew? Okay, we've got a resolution then.
Yep, sorry. Be it resolved that the Parks and Rec update for March 28th be received as information.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Walt or Nancy, all in favor? Carried.
I also forgot the Rails End resolution, if I can read that.
You can do that now too.
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the March 2023 Rails End Gallery and Arts Center report.
Mover and seconder, Nancy, maybe? And Walt, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Next is the bylaw to impose fees and charges, and I think we got some changes coming here. I think we want to discuss the disposal fees for C and D.
Do you want me to call John and Rob back in case you have any questions? Or
Yeah, well, do we need them?
I guess it depends how it
Yeah.
affects budget.
Nancy?
Well, I think we can proceed with the bylaw with the changes that we want, and then perhaps in another meeting, we can get more into the nitty gritty of what our questions are to be answered. They're not going to be able to answer them all today.
If we pass them today, though, that's law.
No, we can change them that are within the
I think it's
bylaw
just the
right
one
now.
that needs changed, isn't it? It's just the one, I think.
Yeah.
We can just change it, yeah.
And then we can get more information as we require. And then
Yeah.
we can do another bylaw to change that.
So we'll just
Fee
take the
rate
C and D
again.
out of the bylaw. And we'll deal with it at the next meeting.
Sorry, I was trying to think. of it.
So there's two bylaws here, one to impose the fees. The PO, the one's a PDF.
Okay. So be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-39 being a bylaw to impose fees and charges be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto, with the exception of fees for C and D, which will be deferred for further discussion.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Carry.
Can I just ask a question? Would we just keep the fee the same for now until we set a new fee?
Yes.
Or
You would have to.
it's not that the fees are deferred, it's just that we're not changing that fee right now. I just didn't know if the wording, if we could get caught on that wording.
Okay.
I'll just put changing.
Changing them. Thank you, Nancy.
The farmer's market.
Okay, the next is the farmer's market. I don't mind passing this, but I'd like it with a caveat that Pat and I can meet them there to look at alternative sites. Because the way they looked at it, they thought that they were gonna, if they went down the boardwalk, they had to back into the bank. Well, they can't. They have to go lengthways. To me, that solves a lot of problems. Wouldn't be tearing the park all apart.
Murray, how come the high school won't allow us to use the soccer or the football field?
I don't know.
I think part of it is because part of the season's in the school year, because it runs through to Thanksgiving and from May 4.
And then they'd probably tear it all to hell if it's in rain too.
And out in front of the tennis court, there's not enough room, or I know there's bathrooms there, they gotta be opened up again, but on the same note.
I think our staff had looked at it, said there isn't as much space, but the Rotary has said they would look at that, as they'd look at any alternative, like. they're
Because
open
I
to
think, you
discussing.
know, we've all talked about it, but I think it's super critical. And again, nothing against the farmer's market, but town's changing on that note. And if we don't get them to a different spot, that parking lot's gonna be over full and down the street like it normally is.
We're gonna be parking on the side of the road for sure.
Man, and like I said, if there's an accident on that end of town and they get hung up getting the emergency vehicles down there, we're gonna be hearing about it. So I'm with you, Murray, on the same note, like.
Let's look at all the sites.
And I know Brian's mentioned, you know, there's not much time in telling everybody, but I disagree. Email, we're gonna set up by the tennis courts. I don't think that's a huge issue. My own opinion.
I think the parking lot area might be more, like, I think there's some issues with some of the other installations that have been in, they ran out of space.
But
last
he's
time they
saying
tried,
that
But
there's no washrooms when you go down the boardwalk. Well, good God, people park up street and walk down there. It's not a big deal to walk from in front of the Shell station to the washroom. So I think that was a bit of a misnomer, but that's.
Yeah, in the report there, like, are they talking like they use the park itself for the full season?
Yes.
I mean, we don't really know what's gonna be involved here when the playground equipment arrives, and that's gonna be crucial and time restricted to get that up and running. So I mean, we better have a plan B for them if they do start off in the park or in where they want to be. Where unfortunately they're gonna have to move because, you know, we don't know what's really gonna happen here when big trucks are coming in there and doing whatever.
You look at the map that they sent in there, like that, they're setting up right alongside the playground, the way I see it. And to me, they're a bottleneck between the information center and the lake and them and the playground. So it's gonna be a struggle.
Yeah, we better just have another place for them to go.
That's staked down there now. It's staked on the outside.
Yeah.
The playground is staked.
shall we do have a resolution that permits them to take place in Headlight
Yeah,
Park, but I can add
subject to a
work
meeting
with
with,
staff and council to determine revised layout.
Yep.
Would you like me to read that then?
Yep.
Be it resolved, the council permits the Halliburton Farmers Market to take place in Head Lake Park for the 2023 season under the condition that market organizers work with staff and council to determine a revised layout that will minimize impact on the park.
okay, so they'll let us know, I guess.
And who is it you want?
On a Pat and I, if he's Ward 1. Unless somebody else wants to tag along. Okay. Okay, mover and seconder. Pat and Nancy, all in favor? Okay. Okay, now we get Jeff and Chris back in. We might get through this today, you know?
Oh. Sorry.
Perfect. Thank you. This is for the application that was heard this morning for the Lands of Warren. Staff have no further comments. And if council is receptive to approving it, I believe the resolution is prepared to do so.
Okay, resolution in.
Be it resolved that council defers bylaw 2030-40 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2005-120 for Lands of Warren, which consists of part lot 8, concession 7 in the geographic township of Dudley, municipality of Dysart, which would change the zone on the subject properties from the waterfront residential type 4L zone to the waterfront residential type 6L zone, the waterfront residential type 6L6 exception zone, and the environmental protection zone. And that council directs staff to remove the provisions from bylaw that would reduce the minimum water setback for an accessory structure and permit an accessory structure prior to the main building or use being established on the retained lot, and return to the April 25th, 2023 council meeting with the amended bylaw, and that council directs the applicant to apply to the municipality to purchase the shore road allowance adjacent to the subject property.
Mover and seconder. Okay, did you have a question, Chris?
Sorry, I think the resolution might change, Jeff.
Did I say deferred and it shouldn't say deferred?
Yeah.
Okay, just
Thought you
cross out
did.
deferred. Okay. That was
Sorry,
the only
I thought I
one
heard
that
that too, yeah.
I thought of it after I read it.
Okay, mover and seconder.
Jeff's
Excuse
got
me.
something.
Yeah.
Excuse me, yeah, sorry if I may, the resolution also included wording that the bylaw be amended to remove the building that would reduce that minimum water setback. So that whole second resolution should be removed, I
Yeah,
believe.
you can't,
Second
not
paragraph.
removing it, we're leaving it. Well, I was asleep when that was right, I think.
Yeah, so that second paragraph of that resolution says that council directs staff to remove the provisions from the bylaw that reduce that minimum water setback.
Okay.
But we want to leave those provisions, council wants to leave those provisions of the bylaw in there. So I think that entire second paragraph can be removed from the resolution.
Okay, I've got it out.
Okay, you want to read it again?
Be it resolved that
I think
council.
you're a good reader, that's fine.
Excuse me. Be it resolved that council approve bylaw, I've lost my voice now. 2023-40 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2005-120 for the Lands of Warren, which consists of part lot 8, concession 7 in the geographic township of Dudley, which would change the zone on the subject properties from the waterfront residential to the waterfront residential type 6L and the waterfront residential type 6L exception zone and the environmental protection zone, and the council directs the applicant to apply to the municipality to purchase the shore road allowance adjacent to the subject property.
Okay, mover and seconder. Barry and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Next one,
Yes, thank you. This is a returning file. An application by Camp White Pine to renew a license of occupation agreement was deferred by council at their meeting in February. Council directed staff to contact the applicant regarding potential purchase of the shore road allowance. Adam Kronik, who's the director of Camp White Pine, has provided his response. He has some concerns that the purchase of the road allowance would be a lengthy and expensive project for the camp. He's looked at the land costs, the legal and the survey, and has provided a quote of approximately $80,000 for the camp. So he's asking that council reconsider renewing that license of occupation, as it would be more financially viable for the camp. He notes that the camp would be agreeable to whatever terms the municipality wants in terms of the annual license fee. He does note that he would prefer a longer term agreement, something in the range of 25 years. I seek direction from council regarding that proposed license of occupation. If council does agree to renew the license, I guess I'm looking for a little bit of direction in regarding that term. So how long that license will apply and how much that annual license fee should be.
do I understand that they haven't paid for the last number of years?
Correct. It expired in, I have to pull up my last month's. It expired in 2015, if I recall.
So then my suggestion would be that they catch up with the expired license of occupation and we renew it for 1 year subject to, we can't renew it for 25 years. This council is not going to be here. So maybe some of you will be, but that's committing a future council for a long time. And besides, that figure might change what we're charging and they'd be locked in. So we could do it for 4. Yeah. And provided they pay the arrears. And 1,002, I guess. Yeah. 2008, you said?
It expired in 2015, so it was a 15.
So that's 8, so that's not
8 years, yeah.
8 plus 4 is 12 years. What you're asking for. Yeah. Yeah, it ended.
Yeah, so we can change that fee then to, okay.
How much per year?
1,000 a year.
Is that? Is 1,000 a year a fair number? Like, should it be more? Should it be less? Is that like, what's,
It's
is
a
that a
lot of,
realistic number? Is it still
it's a lot of frontage. I
Yeah,
think it's a couple thousand.
and there's a lot of
feet.
buildings on that frontage, right?
What was the fee before, Jeff?
100.
The fee for the first 15-year license was $100 a year, so it was
Oh,
15
then
for the
we
entire
bumped it
license.
quite a bit.
Yes.
So let's stick with what we're thinking. Okay,
Be it resolved that by, sorry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-29 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a license of occupation agreement with Camp White Pine Limited for 4 years for use of a portion of the original road allowance in front of their property in part lots 3 to 5 inclusive concession 13 in the geographic township of Dysart. Be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Execution of the license of agreement is to be deferred pending receipt of the signed agreement from the licensee, proof of insurance and payment of the license fee. And further that Camp White Pine will be required to pay $1,000 per year since their agreement expired.
sound good? Mover and seconder? Walt and Barry, all in favor? Carry. Okay, we're going up to Kenise. Little Kenise.
Yeah, this is a returning file too. Council first reviewed this file at the meeting in in February. Lost my month there. Council deferred their decision for a site inspection. Councillor Boyce conducted a site visit for this site. And he could speak, but he's noted that the lands are very steep. The applicant has also provided additional comments noting that the property is very steep, making lake access difficult. He notes that the lake access exists, a public lake access, being the boat launch, exists a 5-minute drive to the west. So staff requests direction for the application to purchase the shore road allowance.
Barry, you were up there and looked at it. You think we should sell it?
Yeah, no, it's, yeah, like I said before there, if you looked at it from the road, you think it might be okay, but once you walk down and getting to the front of their cottage, it drops off, severely. Yep.
Okay, so we have a resolution there.
Be it resolved, the council approves processing an application by Strauss and Hoosman to purchase a portion of the original road allowance between lots 25 and 26, concession 5 in the geographic township of Havelock. These lands are declared surplus.
Okay, mover and seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Carry. Okay. Next.
The next item, Mr. Osborne has made application to purchase the shore road allowance in front of his property on Redstone Lake. This property is vacant right now. Staff have no concerns and request direction to process the application.
Yeah. Everybody know where that is? Okay,
Be it resolved, the council approves for processing an application by Osborne to purchase a portion of the shore road allowance along the shore of Redstone Lake in front of their property in part lot 25, concession 8 in the geographic township of Guilford. These lands are declared surplus.
mover and seconder. Carm and Walt, all in favor? Carried. Okay, next.
Mr. Blake and Miss Stephen have made application to purchase their shore road allowance in front of their property on Cashaga Wigamog Lake. The dwelling and cabin, the reason they're doing so is they'd like to demolish and reconstruct their buildings, which are located on the shore road allowance. The dwelling and cabin were first assessed in 1940, so the locations of these buildings are recognized pursuant to our official plan. Staff have no concerns and seek direction from council to process the application.
Okay, move in seconder. Pat. And Walt, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Lead Park and Museum Committee meetings. That would be. Who's on Barry, I think.
Yeah, I'm on that one. So we're just moving to accept the minutes, right?
Yeah. Okay. Resolution.
Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the draft minutes from the February 9th Glebe Park and Museum Committee as information.
Mover and seconder, Barry and Nancy, all in favor? Okay. Culture Resources, that's you.
Just have a resolution for minutes.
Yeah.
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the draft minutes from the February 23rd Cultural Resources Committee as information.
Mover and seconder. Walt, Nancy, all in favor? Carried. There's no report from closed session. Notice.
Nope.
Notice of motion, any notice of motion? Anything else that?
Just something small, and I maybe should have talked about when Andrew was there. The individual that runs the tennis club was wanting to know if they could take the management of the tennis courts back and to open it earlier and close it later.
Like Art Ouellette used to do.
Correct. And they just want to, and pickleball is becoming more of a sport for, retirees and everything else. So I'm just putting it out there. If that could be done, I think it'd be a great idea. Anyway.
Yeah.
Can we bring it back to the next meeting? I'll just check, make sure there's no issues as to.
Sure.
Yeah, you can bring it back in 2 weeks. And we can do it.
Thank you.
When he mentioned pickleball, I was asked yesterday, is Guilford getting a pickleball court this summer? Was that in the?
I didn't see
It's
it.
part of the
arena thing?
It's part of it's a multi-use court.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you've got the rink pickleball.
And is that still on schedule for
Yep.
this summer?
Yeah, it's spring.
This spring?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Pat and I get over our bad back, we'll be able to play pickleball. Oh, okay. Okay. So, a bylaw to confirm proceedings of the regular council meeting.
I'm getting myself out of order. Be it resolved, the bylaw number 2023-41 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held on March 28th be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Mover and seconder, Barry and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Okay.
Adjournment or more? Be it resolved that council adjourn its regular meeting held on March 28th at 1:12 p.m.
Mover and seconder, Walt, you're famous for that. Yeah. Tammy, all in favor?
And we have lunch for you.
Yeah, I just saw you before you leave.